Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is the 8th of April of 2020. It's all good, man.
Yep.
It's all fine. It's all fine.
Everything is okay. If you
Well,
don't look at any piece of the news, every part of it seems to suggest otherwise. But if
It's
you
cool.
if you block it out entirely and you just watch non-news related television that's not forced to be current, so you can't watch wrestling, and you can't watch like entertainment show. Just watch old Cheers reruns for the next month and a half, and when you come out of this, you're gonna be like, nothing really changed now that you talk about it, I guess.
I've been watching Deep Space Nine with Nicole, and there's an episode where they deal with a highly contagious pathogen, and I'm like, maybe we shouldn't have watched this.
You're like, you know what? Maybe this episode didn't exist. Skip. Just blink it into the next one. Has that been your big quarantine show?
I mean, I don't really have a quarantine show. Nicole still had to work, so we've just kind of like been doing business as usual. Honestly, it's been weird, like seeing that. I mean, so it's been weird having everyone like, oh, things are so different right now. I'm like, I mean, I believe you, but also I just don't go outside normally, so I can't go and see for myself.
You're like, I'll take your word for it.
It's annoying whenever I have to go to the store, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So, all right, we have something very big to talk about this week, Chris.
We're having a baby.
This might be the most relevant manga that we've managed to cover in a recommendation since the series debuted on Netflix, or its anime adaptation did rather. But this is a series that has been running since late 2016 in Weekly Shonen Champion, written by Itagaki Paru, who is also the daughter of the author of Grappler Baki. So that's why there's fisticuffs, I guess, in this series. Anyway. And also, late 2016, coincidentally the same year that Zootopia came out. So a lot of times when people talk about the series, it's like, it's kind of like Zootopia, but rated R. It's like, no. I mean, it's a little bit, no. But
yeah, there's a lot, like, I feel like this series gets described a lot of ways, and almost all of them are either reductive or very, very wrong. There's some truths in just about all of them, but if you go in with the expectation of, like, it's adult Zootopia, you're going to be like, no, it's fucking not. There was so much of same nonsense. That was not what I expected out of adult Zootopia.
We're talking about Beastars by Itagaki Paru. This is a shonen series, so despite the fact that there are definitely some mature themes in it, it is still a shonen series. And so I'm going to say this off the bat in terms of just to give my best answer to the question of who would you recommend this series to. I would say I would recommend it to most people if you're into like anthropomorphized characters, furries, then you're definitely probably going to want to check it out. It's probably going to appeal to you in that sense. If you are not into furries, maybe we should still check it out. I think that there's a lot of good stuff in it. If the idea of furries, and in particular furries having sex, is like, no, don't want that, then yeah, stay away from this. Because there's a considerable amount of stuff built around sexuality, coming of age, finding your place in the world, and all of it is put through the filter of these are animals. So there's a lot of dealing with base urges, instincts, the urge to mate, the urge to eat, the urge to run away from people that want to eat you. And yes, so in terms of that, there is a similarity to Zootopia in terms of the theme there, the relationship between those who eat and those who are eaten. But it was much more cartoonish in Zootopia, and nobody actually got eaten in Zootopia. Multiple things all the time get eaten in this series. So there's that. I will also say that if you start reading this series, it's going to end up becoming a very different series pretty quickly from what it starts out as. Because it starts off looking like it's going to be, like mature things happening at a high school. They leave the high school pretty damn quickly and go to do other stuff instead. So
it's interesting because this is a series with many different facets, and I know there are people who love this part of it and people who absolutely hate this part of it. Because Zootopia is the thing that is going to get compared to a lot. And this is one of the reasons why I would say not to describe it as that, is because Zootopia was two things. It was a cop movie, and it was a movie about social inequalities, discussing those themes as directed at children.
Right.
And this
one was the structure and one was the theme, and so they didn't get in each other's way.
Yeah. This one is the viewing of societal differences aimed at children, but it's also a murder mystery. It's also a high school drama. It's also a romance. It is also sometimes like a kung fu fight movie. It's a hot-blooded. It's a hot-blooded shonen rivalry series. Like, it's a lot of things very quickly. So much.
Sometimes I would describe it as being like noir-esque.
Yeah.
But other times I would describe it as insanely goofy and silly.
It's such a the best way I could describe this, the first chapter is a murder. Like, a murder has happened at the school. They don't address that murder again for like 70 chapters. It is not an issue for them for a while, because eventually you find out who killed, like who was behind it, and it's very odd because you're just like, I legitimately forgot that was the initial starting premise of the series.
I don't really blame you. No.
I was just like, oh, right, the dead kid.
There are things, look, I'll say this. I love this manga. I think that it's entertaining. I think that it does some things that are very cool, some things that are very interesting. I love a lot of the characters in it. That said, it can be all over the place. There is a character that is introduced as it gets into the who killed Tem, the person who's I think he's a alpaca, I think.
Yeah, he's an alpaca.
Who is killed and eaten at the beginning of the series. That becomes the focus of the second arc of the story, and the character that kind of brings into focus, our main character, Legoshi, the wolf, has to solve who his murderer was. There is this mysterious, previously unseen snake hall monitor, basically, of the school, who's like the guardian of the school, and they're given this very ominous encounter with Legoshi. They like display their power by like tying him up, using her snake body and stuff. And then that character never shows up again. So, I've read this entire like 170-ish chapter manga. She never shows up again after that one appearance. So I was thinking to myself as I was getting ready, because I finished reading it either last night or the night before. I was thinking to myself, like, okay, it comes all over the place. There are things that happen that, are not set up at all. But generally speaking, things that happen do set up important things. Yeah. And then I thought, like, well, that was an entirely unnecessary character when I think about it, so maybe not.
Yeah, so when I described it too, I mentioned that some people really like this and some people absolutely hate it. And I like, even in our chat, I'm hearing people talk about it. I would say the one thing in defense of it is that it's never so random as just like a chapter starts with like, let's go to the beach, and then they find themselves in aquatic underwater like temple adventures or something like that. Like, as you mentioned, there's some kind of fluidity to it, and usually stuff is relevant. But in criticism of it, there are a couple times where it's just like, what the fuck is happening anymore? Like, there was a moment, because I primarily digested the start of the series through the anime, not to get into too much of our current climate, but it was an easier way to digest some of it than reading the chapters. And
It is good.
I
I've watched the anime as well. So.
I was I was like, they're preparing for the school festival thing. It's this big, like, the meteorite festival. And I looked at my phone for a little bit, and I looked up, and I was like, wait, why is Haru captured by the mafia? What did I miss?
It honestly just happens. And that was one of the things that I would have brought up in the context of things happen, but they're important, because literally Haru, who is the third, I guess, most important character in the series. She is a dwarf rabbit and also Legashi's love interest. So there is a romance blossoming between them, which is complicated by the fact that Legashi is a wolf and Haru is a rabbit. And Legashi, interspecies romance in general is something that you can kind of see it as an allegory for like same-sex marriage. It's because, of course, it doesn't result in children of one species or the other. I thought that the idea was it doesn't result in children at all, but the current arc deals with hybrid children, so that's not the case. But to get away from that, there's a whole thing because, of course, Legacy is a predator, he is a carnivore, and Haru is an herbivore, an animal that his ancestors would have eaten. And Legacy, from the very moment that he first encounters her, he is overwhelmed by this previously unexperienced bloodlust, and he's overwhelmed by this urge to try and eat her. And a lot of the series deals with, can he resist this impulse to kill her? And of course, safest thing for him to do would be to just stay away from people that he would have this urge around, but he is drawn to her because he is also in love with her. And so that's a big thing within the series, is the relationship between them. And yeah, there's a part where they're just preparing for a school festival, and Haru gets kidnapped. It's not foreshadowed or anything. She's just kidnapped by a gang of lions because their boss wants to eat her. And it's important because the entire climax of the first arc revolves around Legacy trying to go and rescue her, but it just happens.
Yeah, like it's very significant because this changes Haru and Legoshi's relationship going forward. It involves another side character. It involves like a couple other little factors. But it's really one of those things where you're like, all right, let's get this school festival done. Hold on, we got to have some fist-on-fist violent combat with lion gangsters now. Like, all right, wasn't expecting this. I'll follow along, I suppose.
So that is a flaw of the series, I will say, is that stuff happens out of nowhere. Some of it is entirely inconsequential. But at the same time, this series would lose a lot of its identity if it didn't have that bizarre random element to it. There is something that was included in the anime that I was shocked was included in the anime, which is there is an entire chapter dedicated to the girl who sits next to Legacy in one of his classes, who is a chicken, who has a part-time job selling the eggs that she lays to the school cafeteria. And she takes great pride in the fact that Legacy eats her eggs in egg sandwiches, and she has a whole crisis of conscience when she finds out that the eggs that he's been eating haven't tasted as good recently. So he's eating a different sandwich, and she's like, "Oh no, I've lost a customer." And all this is internal because she's just not telling him this. She's literally just like having this internal conversation with herself. We have never met this character before. We basically never see her again. Yeah. So but at the same time, I love it. Like, I mean, I would not say, no, you should just be a more focused series and all this stuff, because, I mean, almost none of the stuff that I talk about is like, this stuff happens and I'm like, oh, this is stupid, pointless bullshit. It takes me by surprise, and then that's it. I think that there's something to be gained from basically all of it. But I could also definitely see someone seeing this stuff and being like, this is such pointless garbage, and getting frustrated and just wanting to get to whatever the fuck the main plot is supposed to be, particularly early on when it is very unclear what the hell is supposed to be happening.
Yeah, so. It's unique because there's, I guess, like two kind of, not red herrings, but initial setups that you're like, okay, this story is going to be about the kid who was murdered in the first chapter. And like, no, it's not really about that. And then the whole series kind of revolves around this drama club and the concepts of Beastars, the titular thing, basically just an exemplary member of society. Everyone's like, I'm going to be the next Beastar. And that's not what the series is about. at least early on, it's kind of about the fact that not even really about a love triangle per se, more is just a developing complicated relationship between like 3 to 4 characters. And that's kind of like the thread that guides you through it. And I think in a lot of ways that is kind of a little bit refreshing because these characters are, at the very least, they're interesting. I don't like all of them. In fact, I can't stand Louis. That character could fall off a cliff and I'd be like, good, much better story without him. But he is interesting.
The Sasuke of Beastars. Yeah. Honestly, not a bad way of describing him now that I think about it.
But it was one of those things where you're like, oh, I could be fun, but I can still admit he's an interesting character. And the entirety of the cast do have different facets to them. They are worth kind of exploring and following along with. So I think it is to the manga's benefit to primarily be about them and not trying to focus on the idea of like, you have to be the best actor so you could be the top Beastar and point to WrestleMania sign and continue, et cetera, et cetera.
A lot of the time, like, I mean, Legoshi and Louis and Haru, who are basically the main 3 characters of the series, they all do have ambitions, but they're also young, and so those ambitions can change as things influence them, and they change as people. And a lot of times they do feel very kind of reactive. Legoshi does definitely have, especially an ambition towards the later part of the series when he decides that, you know, he definitely wants to be with Haru. And so he's got to confront the problems that come with that. And, but in general, there's a lot of, you know, things happen around him and he's trying to make his way through it. And so there's not a lot of, I'm going to definitely do this one thing. And all the characters in general are kind of subject to the shit that's happening in the world around them and they have to react to it. So because you're following the characters on what is happening to them, I think that's part of why it feels like things get jerked around a lot. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, you know, following like, this is the plot and this is what is happening. And this is, you know, the important stuff that sets up this important thing and so on and so forth. So, for example, like when Haru gets kidnapped out of nowhere, well, that's the way that those characters experience that turn of events because they don't expect that shit to happen. But I don't know. The important thing to me is the fact that, you know, the characters that you follow are likable in their own different ways. Louis, I definitely can see, like, you would not find him likable. He's definitely, I think, not meant to be likable, especially at first. But Legoshi is, like, he's so fluffy, basically. He's such a good boy.
That's a good way to describe him.
Because he's dealing with these urges, obviously, but if you get to know the real him, he's just this very quiet guy who just is very considerate of people. There's a lot noted of the fact that because he's one of the larger predators, he makes a lot of effort to always kind of like lower himself and make himself smaller so that people aren't intimidated by him because he doesn't want to be seen as strong. Haru's got this very weird, unique character arc where she essentially wants to be treated as an individual, so she fucks people. Because, and it makes sense when she explains it, she's so small that all the time she's treated as like this weak little child that has to be protected. But whenever she has sex with someone, they don't see her that way. They see her as an object of desire, and so they see her as an individual. And so that gives her a sense of identity and power and purpose. And then there's Louis, who has a different version of that because he is a deer, and so he is a prey animal, but he wants to be seen as strong and powerful. So he carries a gun around.
Yeah, I mean, so part of it too is this attitude of informing characters based on sort of the stereotypes of their animal. Legoshi is a lone wolf. He operates kind of quietly and at night and lurks around, and Haru is a rabbit, so she reacts based off fear and also has sex a lot. And on one hand, you could think, wow, it's kind of clever the way, because there is sort of a trope to this kind of character that Haru is, and playing some of the stereotype into, well, rabbits have sex a lot works to kind of justify it a bit in universe. There are times though where the world felt like it was trying to be like it just gotten its first taste of adulthood, and it's like, all right, let's keep pushing a little bit further. The entirety of the time she's with like the gangsters, they keep making weird allusions to like sexual assault and stuff like that. You're just like, none of this is necessary for what's going on here. Like, there's parts of it where I'm like, yes, this is a more mature version of Zootopia, and then there are other parts I'm like, sometimes this is just stupid Zootopia, if you want to like phrase it that way, basically.
There is definitely a lot of sexuality for the sake of sexuality in this series. I'll give it that much. And I don't think it was a good idea for those scenes to have, like, because there's the parts where Haru was like taking the initiative, especially like her first like proper encounter with Legoshi. She gets the mistaken impression because she has a rep for being a slut at school that he wants to sleep with her. And so she starts, foreplay basically. And then she's just like, what is happening? Like a terrified 17-year-old that he is. And it's like, okay, I can get into like playing up her sexuality because, you're seeing it through Legoshi's eyes. And so it's like, okay, there's this incredibly sexual creature putting the moves on him. But then there's like, hey, there's a lion that's going to eat this girl. Check out her ass. It's like, oh, feels wrong.
Yeah. I also want to, because you mentioned Legoshi, and he is the main character. I do have a problem with Legoshi.
Okay.
Motherfucker needs to stop fucking inner monologuing to himself. That shit is infuriating. It's like the JoJo thing where like it's like he's being punched in a fraction of a second. He has like a 40-minute conversation with himself, but at the end, no one gets punched. Everyone's just upset. The conversation doesn't go anywhere. You're like, this is infuriating. I understand. That's how like you develop a story, but holy shit, every time he talks to himself, I'm immediately like, oh, I hate this. I hate every second of it. Stop doing this.
Having read both the manga and watched the anime, I feel like the anime plays up that part of it a lot more.
Yeah.
And it might just be the fact that like, inner monologue tends to kind of go faster when you're reading it than when, you have to be like, what's going on? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess he talks to himself a lot because he does a lot. That's how he works out his problems, especially because he's a loner, the way that you said. So I definitely can see that could be a bit of an issue. If you don't like, having long inner monologues, then that's going to definitely be a hang up, I think, for a lot of people. Yeah. But Legacy also just, fucking rips out his own fangs in order to make a promise at one point, and he punches dudes really hard.
He does.
And so...
Look, he pales in comparison to the objective best character in the series.
Who was that?
It's Jack, Nick. The best character in the series.
Oh, he's like such a good dog.
That good boy dog roommate. He's so good. He's so loyal.
Jack has one of my first favorite comedic moments in this story. So, at the beginning of the series, Legacy is part of this all canine dorm. So he's got like 5 roommates who are all different breeds of dogs. And so they do, dog things with each other. There's a lot of sniffing. They at one point go to like a recreation center where they chase a ball around and return it to the ball launcher, and it's like, you're such a good boy. They're like, yay! But Jack is also like Legacy's oldest friend in the series. They've known each other since they were little kids, and Jack is very innocent, very thoughtful and happy, and he gets worried about Legacy a lot as Legacy gets more and more involved in this underground world of violence that lurks in the world of Beastars. But there's a part where I'm just going to say it and read it for yourself. So Legacy, when he ends up in a black market where they sell animal meat, which is illegal but tolerated in the city, a a grizzly panda doctor named Gohin ends up finding him and warning him to stay away from Haru. But when Legacy keeps on saying, no, it's because I'm in love with her, he's like, tell you what, here, take this bunny fetish magazine, and if you get off on it, it just means you're attracted to rabbits and it's okay. But if you don't get off on it, then it means you've got an obsession with this girl and it's bad and you're going to try and eat her, so you need to stay away from her. And of course, Jack, being Legacy's roommate, ends up finding the magazine, and so he's kind of like awkwardly like, Legacy, I won't judge you if you're like into, and Legacy like drop kicks him flying out of his bed.
It is like a flying like judo kick, like straight out of his bed. It's great.
And the way it's drawn in the manga is like Jack's got these big bug eyes. When I was like, this is a very funny manga, despite all the weird moments of like, these animals are going to fuck. This animal's going to try and eat that animal. This animal murdered that animal. These animals have kidnapped this other animal, and these two animals are going to go and kung fu fight them in order to rescue her. This is also a very wacky and silly and funny series at times. So there's a lot to it, and hence why the being was like, it's difficult. So
yeah. When it comes to like a final recommendation, so here's the thing. I think this is generally a good series. I don't like it though. Like like the characters just didn't hit my nerves, but I'm still able to acknowledge this is a good series. This is a fun series. I think it's reductive to say this is like a furry manga, but in that same way, if you happen to be into furry stuff, I do not think that's going to be a negative for this series.
Probably not.
I don't think this is going to be for everybody. This seems to be a pretty divisive series, but I think more people are going to enjoy it than absolutely hate it. Like, even I don't hate it. It's just not necessarily for me, and I kind of realized that relatively easily. This is one of the easier series. Like, if you ever listen to our recommendations, you're like, I don't know if I really like just watch a couple episodes on Netflix. Like, it's one of the easiest series to like just quickly be like, all right, let me just give it a try.
It's a pretty great binge series right now, especially right now. If you end up watching the first season and you want to know if you should continue reading the manga, and I'm not saying watch the entire first season. I'm just saying if you have watched it, if you like the final few episodes, you will like more of the rest of the series, because the rest of the manga tends to go more and more in that direction. And eventually, basically, the school life aspect of the series is abandoned almost entirely. If you're there when they're like doing all their drama production stuff and you're like, I don't want to read all this bullshit, that goes away basically entirely. If you're like, well, I wanted more of that stuff, that goes away. Also get used to some characters just disappearing for long periods of time. Haru is barely in the second arc, honestly. She's much more involved in the current arc, however. Some very extreme stuff happens towards the end of the second arc, but which I'm still not really sure how I feel about it. But again, it's much more similar to how the first season, which is the first arc of the manga, ends. So if you like wolf punching other animals, then yeah, you'll probably really like this.
Yeah, darn tootin'.
So that is about gonna do it for that. Let's talk about our regular manga. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would say.
Okay, cool. Do we want to do our regular order, or do you think we want?
Let's move. So normally we keep World Trigger for the very end, and I found sometimes we run long, so we don't have a ton of time to talk about it. So just at least this week, because it's such a big sequence of chapters, I would like to talk about World Trigger at the start, just so it doesn't get shortchanged. If fucking Black Clover and Promised Neverland have to eat the debt for that, so be it.
Which we're a little bit short on some manga this week anyway, so maybe it won't turn out that way anyhow, because we had a couple series end last week, but we'll see. So it's down to the final 6 in the rank wars battle. Which, beginning in chapter 194 of World Trigger, Osamu Mikomo, part 18, is all of Ninomiya's squad against Tamakamatsu minus Hughes. And so basically, Osamu and Yuma have basically met up and are launching a pincher attack on the three members of the Ninomiya squad who are in a tight circle around each other, forming a tight circle of defense while everyone watches. And everyone in the audience is very tensely observing during all of this. So Yuma tries to throw his like scorpion shuriken that he used to defeat yeah.
Oshijabaya or something like that.
The girl.
Yeah.
Anyway, the girl gunner. Anyhow, so but
Obishima.
Thank you. It's blocked by a shield, so Ninomiya responds by launching a bunch of bullets. Yuma ducks behind cover, so Ninomiya keeps on firing bullets and just starts blowing up buildings as Yuma ducks behind them. Fair enough. And so, of course, people were like, hey, the fewer buildings that are in the way, the little less cover that Yuma's going to have. And also, Osamu can't use his freaking spider strategy if they keep on blowing up all the buildings that form the tight corridors. Osamu tries to launch some bullets as well, launching them straight towards Ninomiya, but Inukai intercepts them with his own shield, fires back. So they're like, oh, so maybe this is, he's just trying to, do a diversion by throwing those meteor bullets at him. Because, even Captain Mikumo's firepower could, deal some real damage if only the defense is left open. Because, Yuma could do a distraction and then Osamu could catch him from behind. But gradually, it becomes clear that basically what Ninomiya's squad is doing is they're very carefully progressing, blowing up the field and preventing people from getting cover. And they're just forming a tight shield all around Ninomiya while he blows shit up. And they're gradually progressing. And the reason they're doing this is because they don't know where Chika is. As long as they don't know where Chika is, she could end up sniping them from any angle, so they need 3 people watching out for her bullets in order to block it. However, once they know where Chika is, then they could have 2 of their members go on the attack while the last one just watches out for her. And then Tamako 2 is going to be in real trouble. So I forget this commentator's name, but he's like, she's the most powerful card in Tamakoma's deck. They're going to avoid playing her and keep her hidden in order to divide Ninomiya's squad's attention. That's the way that Osamu would do this, but that really only applies if Hughes were around, and of course he's not around, and Osamu's trying to fill that role himself. Things start to get looking worse because Ninomiya launches another wave of bullets, which Yuma rather manages to mostly avoid, but part of his hands get blown off, so he's taken quite a bit of damage there, and basically, the point is that, if Hughes were there, that would actually inspire some caution in the Ninomiya squad, but Osamu just doesn't have enough power to end that. And so Yuma ducks behind some cover, and Ninomiya starts to get kind of cocky. Dude's got his hands in his pockets as per usual, and he's like, Amatori can't shoot people, huh? And he says, if not, the match is over. Amatori's trying aside, you have no tool that can bring us down. And Yuma says, well, sorry I couldn't go along with your request, but Osamu will be the one to defeat you. And Ninomiya replies, Mikumo doesn't pose the slightest threat to us. And Yuma says, come on, Ninomiya. That's a ridiculous lie, and you know it. Aw. So
this is like where you start sweating, hyperventilating.
This is where the theme music starts to slowly ramp up, So they launch another attack. Osamu uses his thruster to launch something. I guess his scorpion.
He throws his thruster.
Or his Regist?
He throws his thruster. It's like a 2-mounted attack. So
yes.
Osamu throws his thruster directly back at Ninomiya, and then Uega, holy crap, throws his shuriken. Yuma rather. And the other guy blocks the thruster, and then they just make a shield for the scorpion.
And so both of those are blocked. And at that moment, Chika fires from her sniping position, and straight towards Ninomiya. But it gets through a shield. But Inukai just sticks his arm out and absorbs it instead. So Ninomiya doesn't get weighted down at all. So no, Chika's position has been revealed. They're fucked. And she was using a lead bullet. Of course, she didn't use a real bullet. She can't shoot at them, so they think. So Ninomiya's like, all right. Ninomiya fires a bunch of meteors at Chika's position. She summons her same prismatic shield to protect herself, so she's still okay. And then he orders Inukai and Tsuji off and is like, go get Amatori. And so he's thinking, yeah, I'll just take these two guys on myself. So Inukai and Tsuji both rush towards her. And so they're like, oh, what's going to happen? How is Tamakoma going to respond? But Karasuma thinks to himself, this is what Osamu wanted. He wanted this 2-on-1. And Osamu orders Chika to defend herself with lead bullets, try to take down either Inukai or Tsuji. Kuganai will be taking down Ninomiya. And we begin the next chapter from that point, chapter 195, Chika Amatori, part 9. I don't remember these characters' names. Anyway, so
that's Miwa and Yoga or something like that. It's the spear dude in Miwa. Miwa doesn't look nearly as spiky and antagonistic as she usually does. Like, I don't know if the dude like got a new girlfriend and she's really into like making sure she's like groomed and presentable or something like that.
I had to make sure that I wasn't calling this guy Karasuma when I saw him. I saw him and I was like, is that Karasuma? No, it's not. So, yeah. He was like, so Yonea, the spear guy, says, well, that was a waste of an opportunity to snipe. You know, she could have used the lightning or an ibis and it would have, ended one of them. But instead she shot a lead bullet, so I guess she just can't shoot people. But Miwa says, well, it's Mikamo who's giving the orders, so don't blame Amatori. He hasn't found the resolve to tell her to shoot anyone. And sure enough, he has just told her to defend herself with lead bullets. So, more analysis by the commentary. Konami is saying if Osamu can knock Ninomiya off balance, then Kuga can sneak in there and win. Nickname guy is confused, and he's thinking to himself, I mean, this is weird to be splitting up the squad now, wanting to take down Chika, so this is weird. And so they're like, why are they all doing this? Ninomiya switches to his full attack mode, gonna launch all the bullets, but the guy says, like, this is how Ninomiya is now. He's responding to techniques with techniques and to tactics with tactics in order to crush them, as opposed to just crushing them with overwhelming force. So Konami suddenly realizes something, and she just starts to like stand up. She's like, "We got it wrong!" And at that moment, as Tsuji instead of going after Chika, he goes off of a wall and goes after Osamu, rushes in, and then at that moment, Hughes goes, "Now." And there's a 2-page spread of Chika shooting through the window from her new sniping position, launching a beam. And Inukai sees it and warns Tsuji. He turns around and sends out like 3 shields to try and block it, and it just tears through them and blows him the fuck up.
Well, he does that thing too because he
not
expects
a lead bullet.
Yeah, he expects it to be a lead bullet, so he just grabs like a fucking floor tile and he's like, ha, and it just breaks through. And he's like, ah, shit.
It's not a lead bullet. There's a massive explosion. Ninomiya's like, what the fuck? And Osamu launches some bullets at him. Ninomiya's like, haha, flash step.
He's like, gotcha.
So he thinks he's dodged the bullets. Osamu reacts in shock. Konami goes, ah! And nickname guy's like, so close, Osamu. If only you'd gone for a spread shot. If only you had more experience as a shooter. Yuma's up in the air, bearing down. Everyone in the audience is reacting. There's even, what?
Well, because it's Ninomiya has the kill shot.
He's ready. He's got all this.
Uega's defenseless in the air. He's gonna get just massacred right here.
Uega's the other glasses boy.
Yuma, whatever.
Yuma Kuga. So everyone in the audience is reacting like, "Oh, it's all over." I forget the long hair guy's name, but he's like literally face palming. They're so close.
Oh God, who the fuck is that?
Because it's not Azuma, because he doesn't have a beard.
No, is that the dorky dude?
I don't remember.
Is that like the dorky rich guy?
So
I think that's the rich guy. The part he's on a Zumi squad, but he's the one nobody likes.
Might be. I
don't remember.
So Kitora's just watching, and she's just kind of like got this grim look on her face. But right next to her, Karasuma, at the same time as Osamu, they both say, "We win." and suddenly the bullets that Osamu launched at Ninomiya bend through the air and riddle him with holes. And it was like, that was a hound? And Ninomiya is like, was he hiding a hound? No. Those earlier bullets, those were hound shots with the tracking turned off. And so this whole time they thought, oh no, he couldn't carry both because, he doesn't have enough Tryon. And Yukai was saying like, oh, so maybe he'll abandon the wire strategy because he doesn't have enough Tryon. And Yumiya was like, he actually utilized his lack of Tryon. Oh, our boy got him to just completely underestimate him. And so now Ninomiya is full of holes, taking off his balance. Yuma uses grasshoppers to rebound through the air and summons a blade through his leg to stab him through the stomach. And Ninomiya is forced to bail out. And so now there's only the one guy left in all of Ninomiya's squad. It's Inukai, who has found Chika's sniping position. And he approaches her casually and is like, nice kill. And she just says, thank you. And then he shoots her.
You just hear rat-tat-tat like, oh, Jesus.
I got confused the first time I read this chapter, and I was just like, did Inukai just like leave her there before reporting? And then I got confused when the numbers didn't add up. I was like, oh no, he took out.
Oh yeah, he just murdered her.
So he reports to Ninomiya and says, hey, I don't think that the rest of this match is going to actually affect the season ranking. So do you want me to keep fighting? And Ninomiya just sits up, having gotten his ass kicked. He's like, just retreat. Inukai bails out. The match is over. Konami is crying tears of joy as she stands up and celebrates. And the announcement is declared that the winner of round 8 of the B rank wars upper tier night division is Tamakoma 2. They didn't just get the 2 points they needed. They got the whole thing, basically. So they did it! Hooray!
They did it! Ba 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 ba. And Osamu got his big moment finally. Ba 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 ba.
And I love the final shot of the two of them. Like Osamu is like reacting in shock. Yuma's on his back with like his hands missing. He's like, woo! What a moment of triumph.
Yeah, holy crap. So I already announced this on Twitter. This is the chapter of the weekend, the MVP. There's some interesting chapters this week. And I know after like the chapters came out, I know like Ninja X3i messaged me. He's like, do you feel confident about that? And I was like, yes. Nothing comes close to this moment. This is World Trigger's like storytelling 6 years in like payoff, essentially. Like we've had, when you include the hiatus, a ridiculously long amount of time of people being like, is Osamu worthy of being the captain of this group? Can he actually like get through here? And you sit there and you're like, you had the small moments where he helped like Uega beat worse teams. Like I don't care. At this point, you know who the fuck I'm talking about. He helps Yuma beat like weaker teams. And that's like an okay moment. But this was the best team in all the B rank wars.
This was basically the antagonist of this arc, essentially.
And they've established that they're like, this is essentially an A rank team.
Yeah.
They're just down here because of politics. So it's like, okay, like this is a big moment. So for Osamu to finally have that moment, it's the fucking most satisfying feeling. And it all makes sense. You're kind of like, oh, so this is why we had that weird explanation of how like hound homing missiles work like 2 chapters previously and stuff like that. But it all works. Like every moment of this feels fucking well deserved.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first time that Osamu really was like the guy who got them the win, because it was his strategy. His ability to bluff and manipulate people's expectations. He held off on Chika's ability, revealing that Chika had the confidence to shoot people until the moment it mattered the very most. Even when Hughes was down, even when things looked really bad for them with Yuma being cornered, they managed to pull it off. And it's because of his strategy. And also, he was the one who essentially struck the most essential blow of all of them.
Yeah.
Making sure that Ninomiya got taken out. Because if they didn't take out Ninomiya, they would have still not gotten enough points at the end. Because Inukai would have taken out Chika, and Ninomiya would have taken the 2 of them out. They would have been 1 point short. but instead they, won the whole thing. So
Yeah. So
very satisfying moment.
One thing you mentioned in there that I'm kind of curious about. Do you think, because they kind of mentioned like, oh, Samu didn't tell her to shoot. That's the big weakness. And he doesn't ultimately. Hughes is the one to give that command. So I wonder if that's going to play into the next chapters, that Hughes kind of took it upon himself. Because they mentioned even after he got eliminated, he's like, there's still stuff I could do. So I wonder if it was him like, I know Samu won't ever give you that command, or he lacks the confidence to do it. Yeah. But I'm going to make sure it happens because that's the key to victory.
I'm focused on victory, and I don't care about your stupid human feelings.
Fuck off, losers.
How old are you? 6? That's all enough to want to kill someone.
What a fucking satisfying goddamn chapter.
Oh,
holy
wonderful.
Shit, man.
All right. We got another good chapter to talk about. My Hero Academia, chapter 267, Flames. Featuring everyone's new favorite girl, Mirko, on the front cover. That happened very quickly.
Yeah.
She's surrounded by rabbits. Well, they're vicious creatures. They'll eat everything.
Uh-huh. Sometimes they like to force themselves down other creatures' throats, though.
Anyway. So... more of the Tokoyami and Hawks relationship used in this chapter. Going back to more of their time training together. Actually, God, that's a really weird moment. I just recognized the detail. So there's a part where Tokoyami and Hawks are just like perched on like a rooftop and a power pole. And Hawks explains, like, if I have, like, one weakness, it's fire, because, my wings can burn. And Tokoyami's like, well, then how do you counter it? Is it with darkness? And he's like, well, no, I strike a villain before they can use it.
Do you send your darkness powers against it?
That's you, Tokoyami. But we are both bird boys. Don't you have a dark thing? No.
Where is your dark spirit bird to send out?
In which we learned that Tokoyami is a little bit stupid. Why didn't you just play the guitar? That's you too, buddy. But something I didn't realize until literally just now is that Hawks' admirers and fangirls are apparently on the street below them, and they're like, Hawks! And their like hearts are floating up towards him. And he catches one. He physically interacts with a symbol of their affection. So.
There you go.
In the present, Tokoyami and Mudball Man and Shimage and Kaminari are all inside the Fat Taxi now. I did not think that Fat Gum was that big, but apparently he can easily just put 4 children inside of himself and run around no problem. And he even gets a frickin' logo for this technique, which reads Fat Taxi.
Personal
ride share. And there are some weird comments that are made about this. There's the discussion of, why are we running away? And Fat Gum explains, well, we used you guys because you have these wide-range quirks that were really helping us to do crowd control in a pinch and take them off their guard. But now everyone's mixing it up, so your techniques have a real chance of just causing as much harm as good. So now we're going to let the net close in and get you guys to safety. Makes sense. They're less experienced heroes. They've utilized them to the best of their abilities. Let's get you kids to safety. But as this is going on, Shimage makes the comment, it's nice and warm in here. And Kaminari agrees, wouldn't mind living in here. You wouldn't mind living inside of another human being's flesh. Maybe Kaminari is the traitor, Chris.
Yeah.
There's a few psychopathic indicators with him. But apparently one of Tokoyami's birdhead abilities is long-range sight, because he sees the explosion of flame burst out of the window of the building where Dabi is fighting with Hawks. Apparently he thinks about him. Oh. Anyway, we cut over to that scene. And Dobby straight up says that Hawks is killed twice. So that is the assumption I will operate under until it is demonstrated otherwise. Because there's a bloody corpse there on the ground. So
yeah, it's pretty fucked up.
like a sign. There should be like a sign as well. It's like he's dead. Stop, contemplating and theorizing.
His last moment, like next to him, is the last will and testament he just signed.
I'm dead.
He's like his final.
And also, I'm the original clone.
Yeah, his last words were like, "All of my affairs are in order now."
So Dobby is berating Hawks while also burning seemingly his one remaining wing to ashes, it looks like. And, just blasting with waves of flame. So Hawks can't really do that whole I strike before he could do that thing. And so Dobby is berating him and saying, it's like, how could you? How dare you kill? How dare you kill twice like that? And Hawks responds by going like, I mean, well, you've got a weird grin on your face. So is that the face of a man who just watched a friend die? And Dobby's like, hey, that's rude. I haven't cried since my tear ducts got all burned. Fair enough. And he says, like, yeah, of course I'm sad that he's gone, because my dream had a fair chance of coming true with him around. So I'm so sad. Burn, 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 stepping on him. But Hawks, in what could be his last moments, says that you and the League, I looked into your backgrounds, but I couldn't come with anything on you and Shigaraki. Only you two. Shigaraki, of course, it makes sense, because everything was hidden by All for One and Ujiko. But, he's more curious now, especially because Dobby knows what his real name is. So he recalls, as he's asking Dobby who the hell he is, being taken away from his family, entering a special program, becoming a special hero, and then the people in the agency telling him, the training's going to be rough. Can you handle it? And little Hawks has an Endeavor action figure. And he says, can I be like him? Can I be a hero who beats the bad guys? Just like how I was saved. Can I be a shining light for everyone? And Hawks demands to know who Dobby is. And Dobby answers. So, Dobby's identity is 1, important, and 2, not getting revealed just yet. Because the entire text bubble is blacked out.
Well, it's interesting because the way this would go, obviously we'll find out in the next couple chapters, but he reveals himself. Like, we, the audience, don't know, but Hawks knows. And that's why I was like, well, Hawks dies in this chapter. Yes. But he doesn't. So maybe we'll find out really soon. Like,
Maybe it'll be like in Justice League where, Lex Luthor takes over Flash's body. He's like, well, at least I can find out the Flash's identity. I have no idea who this is. I'm Joe Schmeggy. Who's that?
Well, so I guess nobody knows all my... Well, I under the assumption it's Endeavor's son. Nobody knows what Endeavor's family name would be.
That son, right.
Because I was going to say... He should just immediately, when he hears the name, fucking shout it out to... I guess you wouldn't want to endanger the kid by making him a target, but I would be like, wouldn't you immediately just tell fucking Tokuyami once he shows up, like, hey, in case I just get murdered, here's what the name is. Like, this seems like a really important clue, spread word. Send your big stupid bird, just go tell somebody.
Why don't you send your shadow bird to tell somebody? No!
No, what's happened? God damn it! What are they teaching you at school?
The regular problems that Tokuyami encounters in his social life. Like when they're like planning the school festival, he's like, why don't we invite everyone's dark shadows to have a party? No, Tokuyami, goddamn!
I don't understand. Why don't... The villains are too far, but let's all just send out our dark shadow birds to attack them. I'm sorry. What do you think your power is if you think everybody has dark shadow birds?
I thought it was this bird head. Nobody else has one.
Yeah, so sweet.
By the way, all of you look insanely ugly to me with your noses.
God, your dark shadow birds must feel so stupid and ugly when you don't have a matching real bird head.
How do they even know that they belong to you without their matching heads?
Maybe they get mixed up all the time.
Maybe that's why you don't think you have dark shadows. Maybe they got lost. Did you ever think about that, huh?
It's like it's a shot of like some of the people afterwards. Like, I don't know. He kind of had some good points. How do we know we don't have dark shadow birds?
Like a few of them have like crisis of conscience.
I'm just saying, if my Dark Shadow Bird's out there and he's lost somewhere, I gotta find him.
Like one of those things where like, someone happens to make the observation and it's along the lines of like, how do you know you're really awake? Something like that. And they're like, I just never thought about it, What if I do just have a dark shadow bird that I've just never seen before?
I've never thought about my shadow bird that's been out there secretly hungering for more power, but also so lonely.
All right. So Dobby tells Hawks this. And then he says, more than twice, more than anyone, you should have been keeping both eyes on me. The League, Shigaraki, I never gave a crap about them. A single person with a single conviction has the power to change the world. There are no true heroes. I plan to make Stain's will a reality. Which is interesting because, this was something that he said at the very beginning when he was first introduced. Like, I'm a fan of Stain and I'm joining this, league to make his will a reality. That's what he said all the way back then. He just hasn't really talked about it a whole lot. It occasionally gets brought up, but it is, nice to have this little thing of like, yeah, Dobby doesn't care about all this bullshit the League of Villains is doing. He's just doing this because it helps to make his vision reality.
It also kind of starts to make sense why there were a lot of very significant scenes with the League of Villains that Dobby was just never present for. And you realize now you're like, oh, because maybe it would have kind of revealed to us, the audience, a bit more that Dobby really is only interested in himself.
Like, moments that had to do more with like, for example, when Dobby even was around, like they were having that whole big thing with, Toga got injured twice, was desperately trying to save her. Meanwhile, Dobby was off going and fighting the Parka dude and was just heavily involved in that fight. No emotional connections with anyone. No, like, go and get him, Shigaraki. You were just like, find this person.
I want to fight this ice dude because I'm fire dude. Just makes sense.
So he says, see ya, Hawks. Your life's another thing I don't care about. And it looks like there's a bright light. And the Hawks is going to fade away. We cut down to where Gigantomachia is, still carefully observing his radio, which nothing is coming out of yet. Then we cut over to the hospital where Mirko is still fighting the high-end Nobu, and she thinks to herself, I'm not landing hits on these guys anymore, and it's not because I'm getting worn down. I'm more familiar with my body to know that. It's like they're awake now. So this is bad. And she's like, I'm having a fun time fighting, but I got no choice. And so she instead does a tactical retreat to try and get to the doctor. But one of the high ends launches these like nasty like head tentacle things at her, which start to cut through her. She's trying to dodge down corridors and escape from them in order to get to the doctor. And she's thinking to herself, like, just focus on running. If you're going to die, get the job done first, Mirko. And she flies down the corridor. She's right there in front of the doctor, who has another huge freak out at seeing her. He's still working on...
What's shooting out of his nose? Because it almost looks like it has a reflective rainbow in it towards the bottom. Like, what is that at that point?
But the head tentacle Nomu manages to catch her from behind. One of the tentacles pierces right through her fucking leg as she raises up in an axe kick.
Shin splints are the worst.
So she's like, and she's not done yet. And she thinks to herself, a hero never, ever gives up. And at that moment, two things happen. And I will say, it took me multiple flips between these pages to figure out what the fuck happened. So the first thing that happens is the Tokoyami arrives on the scene where Hawks and Dobby are fighting. I don't know what happens. It looks as though Dobby may have stumbled.
Well,
I think it was because he was standing on top of Hawks, and the idea is Tokoyami got him away.
It looks like his bird pushed him away, and he used his cape to like shield him.
Yes, that's what it looks like from the follow-throughs. But we just see an image of like Dobby standing there. There's black flames in the air, and Hawks is not underneath him. And then you see the next page, and Hawks is alive, and Tokoyami has arrived there. But it's very difficult to determine exactly what happened. The other thing that happens is that Endeavor attacks the high-end Nomu from behind that was attacking Mirko, and her leg is able to get free as a result of that. But all you see is just a brief fire appearing behind the Nomu, and then Endeavor crunching it from behind. And it's actually very difficult to tell that that is a Nomu because there's so much fire and sound effects on the page. So
I didn't even realize that was supposed to be the same. Like, I knew he was punching a Nomu, but I didn't realize it was that one. I thought just Mirko just like friendship victory effort her way through it. She's like, I will never give up, and smashed it out. It was just a completely unrelated scene of Endeavor.
So cool moments of big hero things, yes, but honestly, difficult to tell what happens in the sequential art that explains what happens. Like, I don't like having to go over something 4 times for such a simple action to understand what happened. But hey, the people that looked like they were the 2 heroes that looked like they were on the verge of getting killed and failing might end up surviving this. So we'll see how this goes.
I mean, it's worth noting in the cover page for this art, they showed Mirko with a bionic arm. So, and we already know Horikoshi's like, she's my favorite character to draw. So I feel like that's a pretty good reason to understand, like, she's probably going to come back, guys.
I think that she has also gotten quite popular with readers.
Oh, yeah.
Very quickly. So I would understand if you were to like, I'm just gonna keep her around.
the one that kills me though is Hawks, because I don't mind the we're not going to tell you my name yet. I'm telling it to you, but the audience doesn't get to know. That is a super risky move because it is super easy to just frustrate the audience unless you have a real dramatic reason to do it. But if this was like Dabi's last way of being like, hey, I'm just going to name drop my name and it's going to fucking make you miserable before you die. But now that Hawks should...
And now he's like, God damn it!
Yeah, like, now that Hawks should live, I'm like, either he's going to, for no reason, just not tell everybody his name, or we should have just found out at that point what Dabi's... Because I don't know if they're going to have a more dramatic moment to reveal it. Like, unless Dabi meets Endeavor and he's like, hey, I'm your son. I'm like, I guess that's a more narratively interesting moment to reveal. But if not, like, that seems like the moment to reveal it.
The only thing that I can think to justify Hawks not revealing it is that there would be a reason to not want to reveal it to everyone. So it remains a small number of people who know the truth. So, for example, he might, after they get away from this, he might say, like, hey, listen, I need to tell you something, but you can only tell us to these particular people. So I'm trusting you to do that. Something along those lines. But I definitely do agree that there is reason to think that there might have been a dramatic moment opportunity missed in this. Anyhow, let's move on to Actage Chapter 108, Star. It's not the thing that looked like was going to happen at the end of the last chapter, where Chiyoko and Kei were going to have a who can do the best Ogami impression. They start to do that, and then food arrives, and they're like, forget this, and they eat instead.
It's actually one of the few times I've gotten like a really good laugh out of Actage, where they're about to do this big dramatic thing, and then you're like, all right, Kay's just a poor bitch. Just like they were like, here's the most tasty meat on the planet. She's just like, it's so much better in terms of
so good.
She's completely distracted from this point on.
It's completely forgotten about it. And Ogami's just like, hey, I was the center of attention. What the fuck? There's a scene that happens in the title page that I think we're meant to believe actually happens, where the little girl that we saw in the restaurant gets autographs from Ogami and Chiyoko and Kei, which is very cute. They're all, bending down to her and stuff. Then we just kind of like have a series of kind of small character moments through the rest of the series, through the rest of the chapter, rather. Things settle down after everyone eats and drinks, and a number of them have like passed out or just are being drunk idiots. Chiyoko goes over to Kuriyama and is like, hey, are you and I finished? And Kuriyama's like, be careful how you talk, which I guess is meant to imply like people are going to think that I'm like taking advantage of you or something, which is creepy because he's like
or
twice
like
her age.
yeah, like or they're in a relationship. You and I are finished being like a pretty common breakup term.
But she says, well, this whole time you've been looking through me at Unagi. Next time, I'm going to make you love me.
Yeah, I really like in the abridged version of the scene. That's where they animate a small hand with a knife like folding up from the bottom of the page because that's a
Put pink tint on it.
yeah.
Kuriyama just replies with, I don't direct actors that I don't love. There's a little bit of talking with Okami.
You're telling me you really love fucking chick that was the one who got into stars instead of Kay at the very start of the series, but no one actually gives a fuck about. He's like, sometimes you have to just direct like six people that are sometimes
you play the hand you're dealt. Okay?
Sometimes to direct 2 or 3 people you're really interested in, you direct a couple of duds. It happens.
There's a weird moment where Chiyoko apologized to Ogami because they forgot about the competition, and he says, no problem. You've graduated from doing impressions right. I knew about you since you were a kid, but you've turned her into a babe. Weird! At least he's younger than Kuriyama, but weird. She remembers the conversation that Ricky had with her and Araya, where Araya said, this woman and I are still evolving. Unagi isn't the one you're really here to play with. It's us. And Ogami now agrees and says he was right. We still haven't had enough fun. So it's movie time now, right, Kuriyama? We're ready. Meanwhile, Araya has gotten doodle on his face because he passed out in the last chapter. So
I do like somebody noting as well. They're like, hey, thanks for doing it. Like, what are you talking about? Parties of there. Like, we have children here. Like, there are minors here. They have things to do tomorrow.
They have to go home. Most people seem to go home, but because there's a few empty chairs, so I'm not sure if people have gone home or if there's still just like they're just winding down or what. But Kuriyama talked about Hanako, and Hanako says, "So you were popular tonight?" And he's like, "What? You were awake?" She says, I'll never direct a play again. In fact, I can't even imagine wanting to paint or write anymore. I no longer need to create. I have no reason to. I'm finally free." And Kuriyama says, good. I envy you. So this is a little weird. I don't know. It honestly kind of reminds me of... So I know you don't read Ippo, Chris, but there's kind of a running gag among some people because... a lot of the people that Ippo boxes with, after fighting with him, his opponents realize that they basically will never be as good as him, so they just retire. So it kind of feels like that, where it's just like, well, we got introduced to this character, and now they're retiring, and we'll never see them again. I know with creators, it's very different than with athletes. Like, you can retire and then come back to it, I'm sure. But it was weird to have this whole thing happen, and then her be like, and I'm never going to be creative again. Good for you.
Yeah, what are you planning to do? She's like, I'm going to be an assistant manager at a Joanne Fabrics, just like I had in my dreams. Like, I mean, that's great. That's a fine job. It's weird you're that convicted about that specific of a position. She's like, I'll take a Michaels as well. I'd prefer a Joanne's Fabrics, but I'll settle for Michaels.
I mean, working at a fabric store and supplies and crafts store, wouldn't you, utilize that to, like be creative in your off time? No.
In fact, if I ever forced to sign anything, I'll consider that too much of art and I'll refuse to do it.
Okay. I mean, I think that they encourage their employees to like do those kinds of hobbies so that they have greater knowledge of like, I'll kill them. Okay. So, anyway.
I'll slice their goddamn bellies open, stuff them full of straw, and hang them up like straw, like scarecrows. Like, see, you say that. That's kind of creative, though. Like, there's some art to that.
That requires conviction and planning and, dare I say it, creative use of your supplies. All right. Kay wakes up the next day. She immediately freaks out and is like, I've got to rehearse. But her sister just tells her the play's over, which I thought that we were going to see another performance, but I guess not. Okay.
Yeah, they finished it.
And they're having the after party, right? So that's all done. Kay's like, oh, sorry. Okay, I'll make us breakfast. And her sister says, you don't have to. It's ready. Because, well, Arisa is there, the producer of Stars, and she's...
And there's another guy.
There's also another guy.
There's just a grown adult also there who nobody knows.
He doesn't say anything either.
Maybe...
So I don't know if we've seen this guy before. I get the impression he's like her driver or assistant, or maybe he's the guy from Uber Eats, because they mentioned Uber Eats in this by name.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe it's the Uber Eats guy. Somebody just said he's Arisa's to-do, which is a very funny joke if you've played Fire Emblem Three Houses, because he does look exactly like to-do and seem to have the exact same role. But yeah, I'd be like...
So yeah, Mr. Hom here.
Yeah, what's happening to my home?
So Arisa is there, and she's got like basically microwave meals, almost, it looks like, for the kids. I know that it's much more customary to have like these kind of bentos in Japan and stuff, so maybe it's not microwave. But anyway, she's like, what the hell is with your habits? I mean, like, you have a skincare regimen or a hair care regimen. You can't just coast on your potential forever. You've got to get packing so we can move you out of here. This place has no security. You can't get by on your youthfulness forever. You need to learn what it means to be an actress. You hear me? And she's like, yeah. What's going on?
Like, this chapter was good. It had like two really solid, because I did laugh too when she's like, by the way, I tried to make breakfast, but I completely ruined it, so I got Uber Eats instead. Like, the idea that she took it upon herself, like, I'm going to make food for Kay's younger siblings. Fuck it, I can't cook. I'm just going to order them McDonald's instead.
And I like how Kay starts to like ask the obvious question of like, if you can't cook, never mind. Why are you here?
Why did you bring an apron? Can he not cook as well?
Question. Like, because he's there too. Do you think that she was like, all right, put on this apron. We're going to make food. All right, call Uber Eats. I'm not touching that phone. You do it. I don't have the app installed. I'm not poor. So, apparently she was expecting that Kuriyama would tell Kay about this, because she's been chosen as the campaign girl for Matoy Pharmaceuticals' Sheer Water brand. And then she shakes Kay's hand and says, I'm your manager for the job, so let's get started. We're going to make you a star of the people. Starting today, you'll be busy with commercials and interviews for a while, but don't worry. This is a path Chiyoko's been down too. It's like, hey, both Chiyoko and Kay are trying to utilize what they know about each other to become stronger by utilizing what the other is strong at to make themselves strong.
So, Kay, you're going to get into commercial advertising and like standard advertising portfolio. Chiyoko, we're gonna throw you off cliffs until you like gather that innate sense of survival instinct.
Remember what Tom Hooper did to Anne Hathaway? We're gonna do way worse than that to you. Gonna make you dirty and crying every scene you shoot.
One take, so, you don't get a cut.
We're not gonna let you stand up to get a breath to hit the high notes. Fuck you.
What I
have to sing. Yes.
What the fuck are you talking about? We're not gonna dub you over afterwards.
So Arisa says to Kay that she has to learn how to present herself in public, and so she takes her to see an expert. And we see a little bit of this new character conversing with someone, and she's just making remarks like, "Oh, this is such a pain. I can't believe she's assigned me to babysit some newbie." But there's a familiar face with her saying like, "Hey, come on, you agreed to it. You're a nice person. Shut up." Kay arrives, is told to come in, and she enters, and oh my gosh, it's Akira. He is there with a tiny girl. And so, of course, she says, Akira, and the girl is like, hey, am I invisible? And she headbutts Akira's face. There's a bonk sound effect, and he seems to spew blood from his mouth. So she says, greet your senpai properly. It's basic etiquette, right? And she's like looking way up at Kay. She's like shooing her out like, oh, get to know how to greet people. How am I supposed to work with you? And Kay's just thinking like, she's so cute, because it's, a little 8-year-old girl. And the girl who we're introduced to is Satsuki Maino, an actor for Stars, says, I think you were thinking that I'm cute. Well, knock it off. Only the audience can knock her up. I mean, only the audience can look at me as cute. Oh, she's got a crush on a much older boy. Poor girl. That's the end of the chapter. So we're moving past the whole play thing. It's over. It's done with.
So I am more excited for this arc because I do kind of just want to see what they could do with Kay. With like, hey, you're gonna be doing commercials. Like, let's move back to commercials. Let's, instead of having plays where it's like, all right, we need you to channel the innermost like hatred within your heart and your greatest turmoils. Let's just do something safe. And I was pretty excited until like the last 3 pages because, oh boy, do I not like this new character already. That is an awful start. Hate every second of it.
Aren't I likable?
It's like, hey, you know that like the scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where they have Leonardo DiCaprio interact with like the little girl and it's well, regardless, for a moment it's kind of cute, but then like it very quickly becomes something much more than that. I really hope
I'm stuck with this little girl.
Yeah, I really hope it's like the same thing here where very quickly we kind of move past it because this is just not the character I'd want to hang out with the whole time.
This ain't it, Chief.
Yeah, this ain't it, Chief. Yeah.
I don't really know how I feel about her. I do think it's very interesting to see that Arisa is actually going to be working with Kay, because he's been saying the entire time, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that she's going to hurt herself. So, yeah, we'll see how that dynamic plays out. All right. Let's move on to briefly talking about Spy Family. We got a short chapter this week, a short mission 3, and oh my gosh, it's so adorable. It's so...
We say short chapter. I guarantee we're going to talk about this for 15 minutes between fucking Henry K-9er jokes and all this sort of shit.
So... Anya is watching TV, and it's not Bond Man. It's a different cartoon. It's like G.I. Joe with animals, basically. And so she's watching it with Bond, and all of a sudden, she's like, "Hey, look, Bond, that white bear looks like you." And then all of a sudden, bang, bang, and freaking, oh no, Private Peggy's been hit. And then there's like a dramatic death scene, and it's the bear's crying over Private Peggy, and Anya's like, ah! And then at that moment, Lloyd's like, it's time for bed. So Anya's like, I want to sleep with my penguin tonight. Because the penguin got shot, and Lloyd's like, fine. After the penguin, Anya cuddles up with it, and Bond is watching from the doorway and glaring at the penguin. But Anya wakes up the next day, and the penguin's been ripped up, and she's like, my penguin is dead!
Be great. And Bond just like walking in, just like, oh, what is going on in here now? There cannot be a crisis this week. My schedule is already full.
Who could have done such a thing?
We should perhaps alert a mystery to everybody.
So Anya looks at the penguin and is like, Agent Penguin Man, which is the best name. And Lloyd looks at the penguin and is like, well, there's bite and claw marks here. So immediately Anya looks at Bond, and Bond is thinking like, Penguin bad, hate him, took Anya. So it was you! So Anya's immediately like, you did this, Bond! I hate you! And Bond just makes his jaw drop so, but and he goes and whines and lowers his head in the corner.
So I thought, I started having to look up Henry Kissinger quotes just so I could like channel them, and I just found one that it was just him in his essay Perpetual Peace. The philosopher Immanuel Kant argued that perpetual peace would eventually come to the world in one of 2 ways: by human insight or by conflicts and catastrophes of a magnitude that left humanity no other choice. That stupid bitch penguin found out which one was happening to him.
Shaking his little paw. So Bond goes and mopes in the corner, and Yor says, don't worry, Anya, I'm sure I can sew it up for you. You can resurrect him. And she tears it up even worse.
It's my favorite that he moves away, and they're like, don't worry, we'll fix him up. And then they go over and look like, Jesus Christ!
It looks like a murder scene. So Anya's like, ah! So Lloyd says, I'll buy you a new one. And of course, Anya's like, I don't want a new one. I love him. He was a gift from you. It's like, I mean, this is a very 6-year-old thing to do. My parents occasionally tell me the story of how when I was very, very young, I had like a Big Bird doll. And it would occasionally get so dirty that they would take it away from me to put in the washing machine. And they had a substitute Big Bird doll that was all, nice and new. And when I felt it, and I felt that it was not all torn up and smelly like the one that I normally went to bed with, I got really upset and threw it out of my crib. So it's like, it's not the same. Fuck you, Mom and Dad. You gotta give me the right. I want Mr. Agent Penguin Man. So Lloyd's like, all right, I'll fix them up for you. Eat your breakfast and study, and I'll do it. So. Lloyd is trudging around the house. Lloyd operates on Agent Penguin Man while Yor looks on very, very tensely. It's a very nice little detail that she's so invested in this.
It's as though world peace was going to be. I mean, I guess it is in their world. World peace is being determined whether or not this penguin gets fixed.
So Anya is studying, and she's kind of sniffling to herself, and then Lloyd's like, hey, amended it, Anya. And she notes, like, oh, he looks all Frankenstein because there's very obvious stitch patterns on everything. And Lloyd's like, it was the best I could do. And then he says, and Frankenstein was the doctor, not the monster, which is the most Lloyd thing to say to a small child.
Just so you know.
Haven't you ever read Mary Shelley's perennial classic?
Just so you know. Common...
The recommended reading age is 13. What's wrong with you?
It's a common misconception. The Frankenstein monster doesn't actually have a name. The doctor is Frankenstein. Pop culture often gets this thing wrong and often attributes both parts to the same character.
Fine. Oh, right.
He's like, you win this time.
So Lloyd's like, for a warrior, scars are badges of honor. They're proof of how hard Agent Penguin Man has fought for peace. And he's like, badges of honor. So then she sees Bond spying through the doorway. He's got something in his mouth.
The heck was he have in his mouth?
So Anya goes, what are you doing here, evil Bond? And Bond comes in through the doorway, and he's got a bag of peanuts in his mouth. He's offering them to Anya, and Anya reads his mind, and there's like little scribbles in his thought bubble. The thoughts are too complicated for a dog to actually be able to process. So Anya's like, is he trying to apologize? And Lloyd says, he's probably asking for forgiveness. What do you think? Remember what Bondman says? Yesterday's enemy is today's friend. Oh, what a proper parent. He's been actually learning about his child's interests. So sweet. So Anya thinks about it, and then she picks up Agent Penguin Man and gets behind him to act him out and waves his flipper, and he says, you griefishly wounded me, but I will accept these peanuts and bring an end to war. And then Anya pokes her head around the penguin and says, also, I'm sorry I said I hate you. And Lloyd tackles her all happy, and Anya seals the peace treaty by having them shake hands, and Lloyd just thinks to himself as they go back to playing, if only East-West relations could be mended so easily. This was fucking adorable. Brush your teeth after you read this chapter. It was so sweet.
Little does the penguin realize those peanuts are tainted. They will poison him, thus ushering in the chance for my team to take the victory here.
Days later, I do not understand why is the penguin not dead, and what does happen? Why is Anya bedridden?
I feel
he can do something as complicated as poisoning penguins, but he doesn't know how to distinguish.
He doesn't know that stuffed animals don't eat.
And then actually Anya eats them.
He's like, no, stupid. The peanuts were for the penguin. The penguin.
I do not understand. Every time that she tries to feed the penguin, he just spits them back out into her hand. It is like he knows.
This is most troubling.
No, the dogs do not eat peanuts.
It appears my opponent has learned and evolved. I must adapt my strategies.
All right, Eden Zero.
All right. There's other chapters this week. In Zero, page 89, Hermit versus Phi. So we have Happy's little analysis page. Two things. One, marksmanship, very high. Does Happy have marksmanship? I know he's guns.
No, Rebecca shoots him for him.
I was like, so does he have great marksmanship, or does she?
I guess that the accuracy of a gun is a thing, like its consistency and how it actually fires along its sight. So I guess.
But she was given it. But second, 3 stars in, quote, mechitude. What does mechitude mean? How much he is a mech? How much attitude he has as a mech a la Power Rangers? I don't know. Why is he only average with it? Shouldn't he be...
He's a robot.
Shouldn't he be better? He's an android. Shouldn't he have a lot of mechitude? Why just an okay amount of mechitude? Very concerning things.
Maybe the amount to which he demonstrates the fact that he is a machine. So, for example, Pino would have a higher mechitude because she's obviously made of metal, but Happy, for the most part, looks like a cuddly cat.
I guess that's what we're going to have to go with. I would be concerned if they did my rankings and humanosity was like at a 3 out of 5 and be like, that's not good. What does that mean ultimately? So, hey, we follow up on the conversation last time. Hey, we got to stop Drac and Joe. And they mentioned, hey, he's the Dark Alchemist because of his ether gear and his underworld connections, everything like that. But he also has another nickname, Undead Joe. And we see the Joe that's waking up in that. Yeah, everyone's like, oh my God, what does that mean? And Noah can't tell anymore because he's like...
I like how the audio goes out before the video. That's completely not true to life. The video freezes up well before the audio goes out.
Yeah. He does manage to get one last like little blurb saying something like, in world, Baba, I believe that you, blah, 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 found that weakness. So he manages to conveniently deliver just as much information that is intriguing, but none of the pertinent information.
Right.
So we don't know what his weakness is. And before Rebecca could find out who he is, the signal's lost. So, I guess we'll figure that out. They do mention, hey, what does that mean, being undead? Weiss has something saying, like, I think I may have heard that somewhere before, so maybe there's a clue there. But we cut over to Master Noah in Blue Garden, and he says, there won't be a next time. This is my last chance. Also weird, I guess there won't be a next time feels weird, because it feels like that should be the continuation of something, but he's saying this alone in his office. But he's like, hey, if we don't beat Drac and Joe this time, I will die, and Blue Garden will die with me. Okay. Hey.
He still doesn't realize that the call has been interrupted.
Yeah.
Anyway, now I'll tell you how to defeat him.
Everything.
Why aren't you actually responding to me? You're just kind of staring now.
In classic Blue Garden cryptic douchebag tradition, I saved all of the pertinent information till the very end of the message. So we cut over to the hermit fight, and she's fighting against Phi, the fire guy. And he says a line where he shoots out fire everywhere, and he says, everybody knows a bolt's weak against heat, which is, one, categorically not true, but two, I really hope it's the start of his gimmick where he just assumes everything's weak to fire. Like it's a guy made out of, so he's like, everyone knows people made out of rock are weak to fire. They're like, well, popular media doesn't really support that, but no, everything's weak to fire. That pool of water.
Everybody knows that platinum is weak to fire.
Everyone knows
the fire extinguisher fluid is weak to fire.
Everyone knows that pool of water don't stand a chance to some fire. So he...
Blind, we exploit its weakness. Is that fire? It's fire!
I was like, well, if my only power was fire, I too would also firmly, hopefully believe everything could be defeated by fire.
When all you've got is fire, everything looks like a forest. I don't know.
So he shoots fire, takes out some of her camouflage beams, and basically sees her, and he's like, now you won't be able to, like, hack stuff anymore. And he hits her a whole bunch. And he does the hero villain thing of being like, I'm going to get into some kind of like BDSM kink stuff a little bit. Tell me it hurts, sir, please. And then he vanishes. He turns himself into like a little ball of fire, and he goes down a sewer grate, and he gets his way inside the building, and he's like, "Oh, my secret weapon stash, 'cause me real specialty is sniping."
That's why I began this fight on the front lines.
That's why I did the exact opposite when push came to shove. So he's like, "Oh, I'll put a flame bullet in you and explode it from your inside." And he's like, "She's looking for me. She doesn't even know. And I'm going to blow up with my flame ether gear flame ammo."
Meanwhile, cuts the Hermit's perspective, and he's like, "She'll never fall down here."
Yeah, he's busy shouting from the fucking rooftop with his loud bullshit.
Curse the fact that I've got to talk to myself on a constant basis when I'm alone.
"Oh, this is real messy stick wicked. It is now there, Pip Pip." He shoots his bullet. Hermit's like, "Gotcha." And she dodges the bullet. And then she hacks all of the...
proper, Matrix style. There's, an after image of her cartwheeling out of the way.
Yeah. As she specifically cartwheels away from the bullet. So it's very fancy. Then she hacks into all of the Wi-Fi of the guns in his place, I guess. I would have turned that off if I had known there was a big hacker coming up.
Who knew there was a hacker among the group?
I don't know if using keeping Twitter and Instagram on your guns was worth it.
But I have to put every single app on every one of me guns.
Because she just does that. She hacks into all of his guns.
He's like, if you went on the internet on one of his guns, he would have 9 bars at the top. So he's got to operate on a very tiny screen. You've got so much malware on these, but I like those.
But if I don't ever turn them off, they always be powered and ready to go at a moment's notice. How am I gonna know which quarantine house of Harry Potter characters I'm gonna stay at?
Did you just check mark everything whenever you installed something on these?
I always do express install, never custom. They know what's best for me machines.
Oh well, looks like the gun's frozen again. Gotta go hard reset it. This is the 100th time I've had to do it this week.
Time to go put it back on the wall for later at some point.
Oh, good. My Hermit has hacked into your gun app, finished installing it, has.
Oh, that's right. Perfect timing it is. Oh, no. Yeah, she hacked into it. She knew exactly where he was because he's a fucking... They have thermo sensors, and he's a literal ball of fire at points. So, it was super easy to find him. And she gives her line of, "You have no help of ever making it as a sniper."
Which is a great put down, honestly. You're never going to be a sniper.
Yeah. So she uses gun harvest and shoots him a whole bunch. Also, she felt the need to digitize a hologram of herself there to actually make the pointing gesture, because that's super relevant.
It's stupid, but I also like it. I mean, it's just what... I mean, I will say this. Fi was a stupid character. He was a stupid villain. His power set was bullshit. Seeing him get his ass handed to him in this exact way is actually really fun to me. And I do like that Hermit got to style on him a bit with this, you know what? I'm going to summon a hologram myself just so that I can make a gun with my hand and when I shoot all the guns. So
she notes that she gave all of the bullets an ether coating so it wouldn't be lethal, because otherwise he would be super dead. And then there's a big explosion, and she says, "I did that because I can be kind because I do know pain. That is the way of my heart." And I audibly retched when I heard it. I was like, ugh.
It was really cheesy and stuff. It literally only there were obviously lines during their fight that literally were only put there so then she could say I have a heart, so it's it was really reaching to try and have the big dramatic line to end the fight on, and yeah, I didn't care for it much. Also, didn't really care much for all the talk about Joe. It's he's got another nickname. We barely focused on the Draken part of it at all. Did you know Draken's a Kim Possible villain? Why are we calling him that? He's Undead Joe. There you go. That's way more intimidating. And also, apparently, there was a weakness that he revealed to Rebecca at some point, I guess.
At some point, we'll see something. Ultimately, the thing that annoyed me was I hate the contrivance of like, hey, I'm a character who knows all this important information, and I specifically am in trying to impart this information to you, but I saved all of it to the point where it's not convenient anymore. Like, I know the way to defeat Track Joe. It's and that's how you would defeat him. You just again use the click. Like, fuck off, man. It's so exhausting.
All right. So, let's move on to Mashle, Chapter 11, Mash Vanded and the Unpopular Classmate. They're in the forest to have a class there. Mash doesn't know what's going on. Because of course he doesn't. Lance is also there, and we're introduced to a new character who's probably going to be a recurring character or part of the main cast, judging by how this chapter plays out. He looks quite a bit like Renji, honestly.
Yeah.
In terms of his hairstyle. And he is... How would you describe him again? Like,
he's every 13-year-old who's created an OC for an existing franchise forum roleplay ever.
He comes in and is just shouting, "I'm number one! I'm the main character of the story! The world revolves around me!" His name apparently is Doubt Barrett.
You know what? Hey, not to front. That is a main character worthy name, though.
Doubt Barrett. So both Mash and Lance are like, all right. Barrett, let's call him that because Doubt sounds weird, is like, hey, you're that mushroom head they can't shut about. You look like a side character. I hate him already. He talks like a freaking, what do you call him? One of those people who calls people like NPCs and shit online.
I don't know the term we're specifically looking for. Douchebag.
Yeah, let's go on that. So, he's like, you're just a side character now. I'm going to take over as... But all of a sudden, Mash's attention gets called by his friends, and Lemon is there. And she's like, I'm going to try and keep up with you, so take care. And he's like, all right. So Barrett looks at him.
Well, I greatly misread that scene the first time through. I thought it was a lot more like classic female protagonist. Like, I don't know if I can keep up with you, so make sure you take care of yourself. But clearly that's her being like, I'm not going to bother keeping up with you, so stay safe.
Yeah. So it's like, good luck to you. So
that's way funnier in my mind.
So Barrett spits on Mash. And I was just like, oh, this guy's an asshole. So Mash just looks at him and is just like, really?
For real?
He doesn't even bother cleaning the spit off of his face as it slowly dribbles down his cheek. And Barrett's like, I'm gonna kill him! I hate you! You fucking got attention from women? The Chad Mash and the Virgin Barrett. Yeah. So he's like, I'm not crazy, I'm the ratio. So then he starts getting into, I'm not fucking kidding, like, pure, like, incel dialogue. Because he says, the ratio of men to women is equal. Why isn't there a single girl out there for me? The answer is because chumps like you ruined the system, and you're why the birth rate's declining. Won't someone just settle for me already? So yeah, he's an incel on top of everything else.
Yeah, basically.
So Mashle responds the appropriate way by walking away from him. And incel Barrett responds by saying, listen to my rant!
Debate me!
Ignoring me bruises my ego! So the instructor, who has a wonderfully bushy mustache, shows up and says, all right, come on, guys. Adler and Lang will participate in the exercise.
Because fuck Orca! It's like there's 20 fucking dorms. There's 3. Why isn't Orca here?
Why isn't Orca here? They've already got the best adult. He's in a gang, I think. Anyway, he says, you'll all have a chance to receive a bronze or a silver coin, but brace yourselves, for your task is to dispatch the forest scorpions and collect the stone on their foreheads. Most of them only earn a bronze coin, but the stronger ones earn a silver coin, and you can identify them by the four-sided stone lodged in their foreheads. Ordinary magic users almost certainly don't stand a chance, but you are not ordinary. You are students of Easton. Do what you must to survive. Anyway, good luck over there. We're not gonna save you if you get in trouble. Bye. So they leave and depart into the forest. They're just like, all right, let's try and get some freaking silver coins. A new character who has really weird facial lines going out from under his eyes to then like shoot past his ears, like almost they're like framing a beard or something. He grabs Mash by the shoulder and is like, you think you're hot stuff? Oh, I know you, yeah. You're special, at least you think you are. You believe you're not like the others. Subconsciously, you look down on them, right? And then, for no fucking reason, he casts a spell and summons a spire of rock into Mash's stomach. And then the teacher's like, I'm gonna mark you down for that. Stop it. He's like, I was just horsing around. Tell him for it, first year. And Mash glares at him. He's like, yeah, that's right. That's the look. The one that makes me want to break you. Looking forward to it, first year. So Lance comes up and is like, hey, just ignore Mash. He's a year older than us. He's infamous for his nasty attitude, and he's been held back for harming numerous students and professors, but they won't expel him on account of his power as a magic user. Langdorm is full of his type, so don't bother with them. And then Mash reaches into his jacket. He's like, oh, I thought he crushed my cream puff. It's all he heard of that. So I like how Lance is like, don't put that in there. That's not hygienic. And Matt's like, okay. He just like didn't know, apparently. Lance says that Mash and he should work together as a pair. Don't worry, I'll look out for you. He looks behind him. Mash is gone. Mash is like, I guess I zoned out.
It's so fucking stupid. It's such an easy joke, but it still got me.
Barrett happens to randomly run into him because he's running through the forest going, come out, scorpions! And he randomly runs into Mash. He's like, oh, what are you doing here? And he's like, Wah! And Mash slaps him across the face and shut up, you're annoying.
Mash says, the greatest line ever that I may start using as my personal insult to people. I wasted calories on you just now. I'll never get them back. And I don't know why, but that line is so brutal and good.
They look like they're going to fight, but suddenly they hear screaming. There's a student who is being... Two students are in a confrontation. They're like, stop it! Shut up! This is all because I'll make you regret it. And there's a girl who is begging to be saved, but as this guy is apparently going to cast a spell on her. But suddenly an explosion rings out. And, the girl opens her eyes, and the student who was bullying her has been explodified. And Barrett has saved her, and he says, the moment you lay your hands on a lady, you stop being a man. And the girl is like, oh, thank you. And she's like, she's so pretty. No, play it cool. Just act natural. It was nothing. And the girl grabs his hand, and he's like, and she's like, you're so strong. Can't keep it together. No chill. So within the one chapter that this guy's introduced, like, okay, maybe this guy will be okay if he actually becomes one of the good guys, if he's got a less annoying side to him. So.
I think the manga pretty clearly kind of established that the traits that we're pretty much all refined to repulsive about him are repulsive because everyone else ignores him or wants to get away from him as soon as possible. I am curious why we're introducing another character at this point.
There's been a lot of introduced characters. It's still early on in the manga's run, so I think that we're still in the cast building part of the story, yes.
But it is weird because you're like, okay, I assumed Finn is his roommate, yes. Lemon, like as an early protagonist character. They established, Lance is his rival. They also introduced Tom as somebody who would have kind of a relationship with him. And then it's like, then this character, and then we have a villain here. Is this the same villain from the last one?
No, his marks are different. The villain who was the head or was ordering people around at the dorm has 3 marks on his face.
So it's like, it's It's kind of interesting. It looks like there's a lot of different things. I will note one complaint I have on the series so far, and maybe this is something that'd be changed if this is like animated. I wish there was a way to visually tell which house characters belong to at a glance. Because I had to
give them those color coordinated ties that you got in Hogwarts. Yeah.
Or something that I could visually be able to tell. Because I'm like, is Barrett also an Adler character? I could understand maybe he's a Lang character, and then maybe that's what his purpose is, to be like a good character, or at least an ally character inside of Lang.
Be more than Rowling ever did with Slytherin.
Yeah, so like something like that maybe would help, but I can't tell who he's supposed to be a part of right now.
But yeah, so I think that this was definitely a very much like you remember who this guy is, Barrett, now that you've seen him, because like, he's incredibly annoying, but then, hey, he does show this one really cool side to himself, and just like, all right, maybe this guy could be kind of endearing. It's just that he also has some qualities that at least everyone finds annoying and weird. So it's like, how Lance has his sister fetish, and Mash is like, that's really creepy. So
yeah.
And on the last page, we see that double mark guy who's got like, it looks like brow piercings as well. He has just taken down a really massive scorpion and ripped out the stone on its head, and just says to himself, "Is it almost time?" So, I guess we'll see what the hell that he's up to next week. So, all right, Mission Yozakura Family, Mission 31, Prison Break Grandpa. So there's another member of the Yozakura family. Grandfather who has escaped from prison, and Hotokayama is the detective that is in contact with the Yozakuras, has gotten a message from this old man whose apparently name is Bon, and he's like, I'm stepping out for a bit. And we see that he has come to check out Tayo, and snuck into his bag somehow. So he comes out of the bag and is like, oh, so you're my new grandkid. You seem straight-laced. Nice to meet you. I'm your grandpa. I do like Tayo's reaction to seeing him. There are some definite, like, low moments in this chapter, but the exact part where Tayo is just like, I sure, and shoots him immediately. He's like, okay, good. He's learning, and he can also react to things without just being like, the spy world is so dangerous. It's like, okay, that's not just his skills developing, that's his personality developing. So Bond gets a little bit beaten up before he's able to actually properly introduce himself. Mutsumi shows up as well. He's like, yeah, this is Grandpa Bond. He says, I saw Grandma's face flash before my eyes, but your reflexes were pretty good. You're a good husband. I'm relieved. So here's a wedding present. Cha-ching! Big old bundle of bills. And he's like, I've come to congratulate the newlyweds and also to get acquainted with my new grandson-in-law. Let's go, Tayo. But Kyoichiro shows up, and he's like, what are you doing here, grandfather? And ties him up with threads. They have asked me to retrieve you, the escaped prisoner, Bon Yozakura. And Bond's like, hey, don't give my new grandson the wrong idea. My mission is to be an underworld informant. I gather information while I'm in prison, and then I pass it along to here and to other areas. So, fair enough. But he's like, oh, I'll go back, but let me have some fun. But Kyoichiro's like, no, you're a blabbermouth. You always go around and try to impress ladies by passing on secrets that you've learned. So we're putting you back in jail. Bon immediately escapes the threads. Like, he turns almost snake-like, grabs Tayo and throws down a smoke bomb, and they vanish. And so we're introduced to this ability. He's incredibly flexible, and so he can infiltrate and escape anywhere as a result of that. So yeah, he's got skills. Tayo is taken by Bon to a club, and so they get in touch with Tayo pretty much immediately over his phone, and they're like, hey, retrieve him, capture him before things get out of hand. It's for his own good. Anyway, where is he? We're in a bar, and he's flirting with women. And so, yeah, Bond's done immediately what he said he was going to do. He's like, I want to know some state secrets. And he's like, see the country. And Tayo clamps his hand over his mouth. But Bon immediately wriggles out of his grip, and he's like, you can't hold me down, but oh, there was a bit of glue that Tayo managed to slap onto Bon, so when he sits down, it adheres him to the seat. It's one of Nanao's inventions. But Bon's like, naive! The only thing that can stop me is beautiful ladies! And he whips out of his clothes immediately. He's left in his fucking tidy whities. And the girls find this charming, I guess. So Tayo tries to hold him down, but Bon's too swift for him. And eventually they just, are hanging out at the bar. An hour later, Tayo's out of breath, and Bon's like, you're too young to catch me! Bon is like, hey, share a drink and some cigarettes with me. And Tayo's like, I'm underage. But Bon's like, I'll never see my great grandkids at this rate. And Tayo's like, the idea of sex with me. So Bon's like, tell you what, I'll tell you some nitty-gritty lovey-dovey stories about me and the missus so you can learn for future reference. And he says, my wife was this beautiful woman. Before I met her, I never opened up to anyone, and I had no family. I was living life with no concern for myself. And Tayo's like, well, that's like me. And Bon says, she shed a light on my reckless way of living, and that was my wife, Keiko. She was a good woman, too good for the likes of myself. And we see an image of young Keiko with young Bon, and Keiko tells him, treasure yourself the same way you do me. And Bon's like, I wish I could have grown older with her more. You remind me of me. I wanted to tell you this as a fellow Yozakura groom. Even if love is infinite, life is not. Treasure the moment so you don't have any regrets. My only wish is for you two to be happy. And Tayo says, it'll be all right. Mutsumi has made me happier than I thought possible, and I have no regrets. Then he lights Bon's cigarette for him. So he says, I'll do the same. I'll give him my all so Mutsumi will feel the same way, and that's all I can do. And they've bonded. That's nice. Anyway, Keiko's actually alive. So that was weird. He's like, she shows up and slaps handcuffs on Bon, and she says, if you slip these off, the handcuffs will blow up, so if you don't want my hand to blow off, then you'll do as you're told. And he's like, you're here! And Tayo's like, he really made it seem like you were alive, and Bon's just like, you're here! Look! Go! And he wants to, go on a date with her and stuff, and she's like, you've got a mission to do, go back to fucking prison. So the day ends. Keiko takes Bon away, all tied up and stuff. And a few days later, they have a picture that it turns out they did go on a date before she took Bon back to prison. And so it's like, oh, okay, that's nice. And Tayo says their good relationship after all these years is something to learn from. So this is definitely a chapter that had its ups and downs. I think overall I'd had a negative reaction to it. But there were nice parts to it. I like the conversation that Bon has with Tayo. In the end, though, it's, more wacky spy shenanigans and, and also it's just like, let's focus on a new character instead of building on the very large, actually, cast that it's got for a 30-chapter series.
So Bon's gimmick is he goes to prison and intentionally so he can learn things.
Yes.
Tell me.
Yes.
How does he accomplish that when he's solitarily confined and strapped to a motherfucking gurney?
Good question, Chris.
I'm so fucking done with this series. I'm just done. Zipman's ending and I'm more invested in it than Jishin Yozakura family at this point.
I mean, I would say maybe he had been momentarily confined to solitary confinement, but Hotokiyama says, here I thought he was awfully obedient lately. So, no, that's not it. It would make sense if it had been like, oh, he had been causing trouble, so he was put in isolation, and then that was actually his plan. He wanted to be all alone so that he could escape. And that would have made more sense as an explanation, you're right. So yeah. Anyway.
Zip, man, zip.
Chapter 17, You and Me Together. That's the title. So, now Koshiro and Kaname are fighting together, and their power doesn't just get added together, they become exponentially more powerful. Yay! They fight against the chairman, who's in his giant building mech suit thing, and when he slashes his arms, it causes more zippers to appear, right? Whenever the beam goes, and they're like, "Let's do it! Go attack! Go, sword! Boom! Smash! Zip!" And the mouth of the building thing opens up, and there's like a capsule where the chairman is sitting inside, and he's like, "They went from 1 to 2. How can they be this strong?" And they smash the zipper on the main suit, and it completely rips apart, and all of the zipper suits around town collapse because the main one has been defeated. And so there's everyone going, "Yeah!" And they won. And both Kaname and Koshiro show up in front of China, and they're striking their poses, and then they get into an argument because they're like, "No, I want to, I want to shut, fuck you." And the two heroes who went into the nightmare, Zipman 1 and Zipman 2, eventually got their own TV show.
All right. Look,
and, they're still around. They're using the zip suits despite the calamity that they were involved with. Koshiro says, "I've met humans I can believe in, so that's why I can believe in this. People who can prove what I believe." And now Kaname and Koshiro are apart again, but they're able to, coexist more properly. You and me together, let's do this, and that's the end.
So admittedly, I do kind of like this finale. It's not the best kind where it's like, all right, we had to kind of close things off, but I like, there's kind of like a scale, and the worst ones for me are like, here's everything that was supposed to happen in the last chapter. I didn't have time to do it all. Like this one, even though we clearly had to jump forward and cut out literally all of the character development that the main character was supposed to have in between like the end of the last arc and this one, I do like that we got that fight with him and his brother, and then we got to have this kind of final fight where they work together, and then we still have time for like an epilogue that, I mean, let's be honest, we really only had like 3 fucking characters we knew about, so we didn't really have to spend a ton of time being like, and here's what this character's doing. So
yeah, this 6-page epilogue like normally would have taken the place of like, a full chapter at least. So
I liked it. I think it was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is definitely a series that showed flashes of potential. I imagine that we will see another series from Yusaku Shibata soon, and hopefully it's a bit more well thought out than just cool action scenes, and hopefully it catches on. Mm-hmm. All right, Chris, do we ever learn?
Let's do it.
Do we ever really learn?
Well, Nick, we never learn, I guess.
No.
Question 154, X equals Thumbelina Supercomputer Part 4. So, do we want to talk about it now or at the end, Nick?
What are you talking about, Chris?
We'll talk about it at the end. Last time, our heroes and the Ghost Girl have been stuck, trapped by water when high tide went up. And they know, like, oh, shit, none of us could swim. Oh, God. And then Ogata's just like, we just wait tomorrow, the tide will go away. And we almost certainly won't die of hunger in a single night. And Yuiga's like, oh yeah. Like, it's like, I guess he just forgot because of the panic of it. But he's nervous because he's like, I'm going to have to spend the night just the 2 of us? Oh, my brain can't go to weird places right now.
This is a situation that Yuiga has never had to deal with in the past year of his life.
Never had to do it.
Multiple times with, like, every girl in the series, pretty much.
Yeah. So, hey, they're going to have to get a fire started. Yuiga can't get it started.
Admittedly, Ogata's wearing fewer clothes than I think any of them were.
Yeah.
But yeah.
She's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll try. And Yuiga's like, no, I'm the guy. I'll do a heavy work. And then she's like, wait, no, it's not about gender. And then she gets sick enough to have the situation mansplained away for her, basically, because that argument just ends. He gives her his shirt so that she's not as cold, and then they just talk about smelly stuff, and then the ghost just lights the fire for them. So, hey, it all worked out anyway, I guess. At the night, she's like, hey, you know,
it's a good thing that we've got the main character of the Ogata arc, Misao.
Yeah, basically. She's like, hey, it reminds me of the first time he came to my house. It reminded him of that moment. And she's like, at times like this, it feels like the distance between us shrinks, And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And he thinks back to a game. This is a game we're playing, right? Lady Ogata's been getting close in a way that feels so natural. I tend to get swept up in it.
Yeah, I totally believe it.
Yeah. And I'm very glad they stated that because I would not have been able to read it from this scene. And then she says, hey, speaking of birthdays, Sekijo's birthday's coming up. And he's like, I didn't know that. We should have a big celebration. She's like, yeah, this is my chance to repay her for always being great. Oh. Maybe something will happen. There. All right, let's wait. She talks about how she's always saying, help me out. I wish there was something I could do to support her. Let's see what happens there. And then he's like, oh, well, I bet if she heard you say that, she'd go into a state of ecstatic rapture and pass out. She's like, what does that mean? And he's like, I don't know. She's like nosebleeded orgasm and fall asleep, I guess. Like, even in layman's terms. Then they get really close. And the fire's like kind of heating up. And she's like, oh, were you going to say something? No, you were going to say something, right? No, you were. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst. I hate this romance. Can we please just go to anyone else's part?
There's no canon ending, Chris. This is equally valid as the Yozakura ending. It is up to you, the reader, to determine which ending is the official ending.
Sekijo shows up. She's like, hey, I found you guys. I'm here to
What a fucking hero.
I'm here to save us from this fucking scene. And then her boat gets turned over. So both of them leap into the water, and the only...
I love how she's like, don't worry, I'm here now. Your best friend, Sawako Sekijo. Yikes!
I do like, and the only legitimately funny one, though, they both jump into the water, and as they're mid-air about to get into the water, they turn to like, can you swim? And no, they can't. They both go into the water. Sekijo manages to save them, manages to pull them both out. They're like, wait, I thought we came in to save you. And Sekijo's like, yeah, it's kind of weird. I guess something pulled me out. And Ghost Girl did it. Ha ha ha.
Beastars the main character.
She pretty much is. Ogata hugs her because she's like, thank you. You scared the heck out of me. I'm so glad that you're safe. And Sekijo starts shooting blood as she tries to be calm. And she's like, no, I'm the one who's so glad you're safe. Thank goodness. We cut back to the house, and I'll say this. We made a couple jokes about the fact that this is so weak in comparison to the Iruka ending.
Yeah.
This is the only moment that actually had me concerned that maybe we were going to get the worst version of this where they do try to, because we actually start to kind of get some closure of Fumino in Ogata's storyline, which, depending on how much of this we do, could not be good. And maybe we were really getting all 4 different endings, which is exhausting. But hey, but she's like, oh man, I think back to that time where me and Iruka also discovered that you were, I guess all of us needed to walk in on you doing something.
They were there when that happened. They just didn't see, how close Ogata and Yuika got, basically.
Yeah.
So
both...
And also, Ogata did not propose, would you like to play a game with me?
Yeah. Oh, man. It'd be so much better if she was making Yuika play Saw games.
Oh, yeah. Like, the entire time that they've been, going to college and stuff, she occasionally kidnaps him and forces him to make some sort of horrible sacrifice in order to escape the death trap. Yeah.
Hey, Yuika, could you help me order a reverse bear trap off of Amazon? I can't find one.
Oh, sure, Ogata. Wait, is this for one of the death traps you're gonna make for me? Maybe.
Yeah, we were gonna play Saw. I got distracted. There's a podcast to listen to where one of the guys, they just made a joke about him that he was like, hey guys, I just played Saw. Want to go play it with me? That he's just like this scumbag who was just like, just got done playing this really cool Saw game. Anyone else want to play? Yuega, basically they cut to that scene and Fumino and Iruka are like, oh, holy shit. Like, wow, she's really fucking forward. I don't think I could do it. And I guess this is their way of saying this is why Iruka didn't confess, because she's like, nope, too forward for me. So maybe that's it for both of them, and then maybe we'll still get Nasumi and Akirasu closure as well. I'm hoping not, but I mean, I guess this is a pretty necessary thing, considering Fumino specifically still has some of these feelings and has to kind of figure it out. That's the way the chapter ends, with Fumino saying, go for it, Ogata. And
yeah. It's much more depressing, honestly, for Uruka than for anything we got in her ending with the others, where they were like, "Yeah, we're sad, but go get him." And then this one, she's like, "I guess I'm just going to fly away from you, Iga, forever."
I guess I'll just leave these feelings digested in my stomach forever, constantly taunting
One
me.
day I'll die.
So Nick,
Doc Stone, go ahead.
do we want to talk about an OVA?
Go ahead.
Do we want to talk about what happens in an OVA of We Never Learn?
So, you guys, it's not canon. I don't know why you guys are doing this. I don't see no fucking black and white pictures. You see, sending me freaking screenshots of this overly red and pink bullshit. Oh, Seikaichi fantasize about marrying Okada in an OVA.
All right. That's Nick's firm stance.
If that happens in the manga, then it'll be different, but it hasn't yet. So.
All right.
Dr. Stone, Z equals 146. Bah, Francois, bitters. Look, we don't have time to talk about that, okay, Chris? I'm serious. So we've got 5 chapters to talk about still. So, was still upset that there was no booze being served in Francois' bar, but Francois was I'm waiting for the alcohol to actually be processed because they had to go through the whole thing. The weirdest part of this whole thing is that Kohaku was actually doing part of the explanation because she's familiar with the process she's been entrusted with by now. So it's just weird to have anyone, let alone Kohaku, give a scientific explanation that isn't Senku. So they prepared a bunch of all of the extras basically on the purge. You just get regular ass beer. And then Ginro approaches Matsukaze. He's like, "Hey, Matsukaze, I want to hear tell me about when I was your lord. How awesome was I?" And Ginro's like, "That wasn't you, Ginro." So Matsukaze gives a very bleak recollection of what his master was like and how they were fighting in this war where there were all these petrification devices being used by rival factions on this island. And the past Ginro was trying to lead everyone to destroy the weapons in order to save them all. But he was touched by one of the beams. Matsukaze briefly saved him by cutting off his arm before the rest could spread to his body. But then after he carried him away from the side of the battle, he lost a fucking arm, so he's bleeding out. And so the past Ginro says, "Matsukaze, I'm not long for this world. I've given some thought to the matter. Why would the heavens rain down these weapons upon the people? At first I thought a divine punishment, but don't you think it's strange? If the heavens meant to petrify us all, then why not simply send a single device to envelop the island? Why, for that matter, are the weapons simple enough for us humans to use? They seem designed to bait us into petrifying each other willingly. How vexing. I wish nothing more than to prove the heavens wrong, to show that mankind is not so foolish, that we are not to be mocked." So, interesting. Hero dies, rival warriors show up, and Matsukaze has proper, huge samurai one against many showdown with them. Blood is shed, his hair falls out of its top knot, and he's surrounded by corpses. But a bunch of people throw petrification devices in his direction, and so he's left to contemplate what his masters just told him. And so he says, "I must inform future generations of the source of this evil." And so he allows himself to be petrified. So that's the big thing that happens in this chapter, that explanation. And so,
That's the big thing?
Well, there's that.
Not the three characters.
There's the big thing that happens at the beginning of this chapter. Afterwards, Francois makes a very simple drink for him, and turns out he's a lightweight. He falls over immediately. I do like there's the whole thing where Ginro is left to reflect on, what type of a person Matsukaze's previous lord was, and, maybe he should stop being so much of a dick to him. When Matsukaze wakes up, it's time for some fucking weapons training. And so Tsukasa is going to train him, and then they're like, Tsukasa basically specifically asked for one person to be revived, that being Hyoga. But Hyoga's like, "All right, tell you what, I'll help you polish Matsukaze's weapons training, but I have one condition. I want 2 people to be revived of my choosing." And so Mose and Hamura are revived as well. So that was quick.
So three things. One, I've been meaning to ask whatever happened to the poison girl, but I've been too afraid of looking dumber than I already am. So I've been holding off, like, asking that out loud. It's like, I bet she's somewhere and I just forgot. So it's good. That's finally answered. Two, does this count for an arm getting cut off?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the count. And then three, Tsukasa has like a super double-sided buster sword now.
Yeah, he's fine.
They just never really thought to mention that.
Maybe it turns into a sword, Chuck. So
yeah.
So Ginro observes Matsukaze fighting with all of these horrifying people, except Homura, because she's, a spy, not a direct hand-to-hand fighter. And so Ginro calls over to Kinro and says, "I don't want to pray. I mean, I'm not going to get caught up in those dangerous people. Do you think we could, And they start to train together, just like old times. And it's like Ginro says, just like bitterness, when you combine layers of uselessness, they turn to a smooth flavor or something. And Kinro's like, what are you talking about? That's how the chapter ends. So, training! So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if there's going to be more purpose to bringing back all three of those characters than the Trina character I already wasn't super excited about being around. So,
it definitely seems as though we're going to be heading into a big, war thing. That's honestly, once they actually clash with whoever the fuck Y-Man is, that's probably going to be the final arc of the story. But that's probably still, you're going to guess about I would guess 100 chapters or so.
I was going to say, they still have to go to all those different locations and get all the different things. Yeah.
All right, Chainsaw Man!
Brum.
Chapter 65, The Darkness Devil. Denji has just heard that the Darkness Devil intends to fucking kill Makima. Everyone starts trying to fight back with their useless arms not being there. We see some cool things happen, like one of the bodyguards tries to summon the Stone Devil by making a blood sigil on the ground, but one of the Darkness Devil's arms just fucking grabs it and crushes it, and the dude who summoned it is crushed as well. So, good job. Beam tries to revive Denji by pulling on his ripcord, and something else happens as well. The Violence Devil says to Kobeni, "Take off my mask and hide." Beam entrusts Denji with trying to save them. The Darkness Devil points a finger and his head falls off and his torso is bisected as well. All of the girls and another bodyguard are basically all immediately struck down in one go by the Darkness Devil's many bladed arms. Chuanji is down. Makima does not get it nearly as bad as the others, but she still gets cut numerous ways over her body.
You mean power?
Power. Sorry. Yes, that. And then the Violence Devil, with his face revealed, he's got 4 eyes, hulks the fuck up and tries to launch an axe kick to the Darkness Devil, who says something, and holes appear all across Violence Devil's body. Denji jumps into action. He can barely get a blade out of his arm, and as he tries to strike the Darkness Devil, faces appear in the darkness around him, and they're pointing, and it's creepy. That's all that matters. It doesn't look like the Darkness Devil gets hurt at all. Aki starts to freak out because he sees the power is down, and he remembers, oh god, people around me keep dying. The Darkness Devil claps. Not even the Darkness Devil. The Darkness Devil's, I guess, things that are around him in the darkness clap their hands together. Denji falls after being struck numerous times. The Violence Devil gets up despite having holes in his body and summons another fist from his mouth. But a sword appears in the air and impales him. And then blood goes everywhere as Aki is left on the ground before the Darkness Devil, and the Angel Devil just looking at him. Also, a bell rang at one point. Not sure why. So there you go.
Yeah, well, the bells was attached to the sword, and I assume that was the special effect as to why he rained blood. So this is a cool chapter, but this is a chapter that kind of makes you realize there won't be consequences to this because the entire cast is dead if this is supposed to be a reality.
Well, Power looks in better shape than the others who got killed at the moment that she was, and she's a devil, so maybe she could survive this. Literally everyone else, I could actually see dying at this moment.
It
Like
would it would feel
violence. Yeah, Kobeni's still alive. Violence Devil dying, I could see that with the people characters who have died before him. And then Chuan Chi and her girlfriends, yeah, I could see that. And Bodyguards dying, yeah, I could see that. Aki's still up, Angel Devil's still up, Denji's still up. Well, Denji's in bad shape, but
I'm gonna be
he's not.
pretty annoyed if everyone else, like, unless Power has some real stupid funny reason as to why the Darkness Devil, yeah, the Darkness Devil just like kind of sliced everyone clean in half, but for some reason she didn't. So yeah, like I this is one of those things. Just Nick, just like Tiger King, I don't buy this.
Okay.
This is a fucking
Right.
this is some carny shit you're trying to trick me on. So I'm not buying into this yet.
Yeah. All right, so Promised Neverland.
Oh boy.
So Rachi's killed himself. It's sad? Question mark. Chapter title is A New World, Part 1. Rachi. All right. So Emma's looking at Rachi and is like, if you were born in Gracefield, could we have been friends? Cue imagination spot of baby Emma and baby Norman and baby Ray greeting baby Peter Rachi and playing together. Of course not. Never. Don't bother. I'm dead. Fuck you. Dead.
Isn't
Dead.
this like the third time this has happened to? I feel like I remember a moment.
Fresh idea. Fresh concept.
I was
No,
like, I've-
never been before.
I feel like this has happened exactly before where Emma's been like, I wonder if they were our best friend at the school, if we'd be friends with them. Like, yeah, fuckhead. If they grew up like on your fucking neck, like on your neighborhood street, you'd probably been buds with them. That's how friends work.
This is something that any series can do one time. Like one time, or it's deliberately a theme of the series. Promised Neverland has done neither. Promised Neverland has flooded you with this idea just in the late game. So, like, in Dr. Stone, what they did with Tsukasa, it was powerful. They haven't done it since. When, I think they did it with, I forgot. I'm forgetting the example that I had in my mind. Whatever. Like, the imagination of, like, if we knew each other as kids, could we have been friends this whole time? Why would we have still been enemies? You do it once, or you have to do it repeatedly throughout. Not 3 times in a row out of nowhere. Rachi's dead. Shows up and is like, I was able to enjoy this for longer than I expected. Well done. Emma is upset that Rachi died. She wipes her face and is like, we're going to do it. We're going to find a life that we can live happily with our family. And then there's like an awkward encounter because all the moms are there with the kids. And Isabel's like, so what now? So Emma's like, okay, well, there's still the 2,000 Imperial soldiers and we have other stuff we need to do. But Emma's like, I'm glad because I wanted to talk to you once we got to Gracefield. Let's go to the human world. And once everything's over, you should come with us. And we see that when she told that she wanted the children to go to the human world, she meant all the children that had been in the farms, the ones that had grown up as well. And so they're part of the promise as well. Aw, that was nice of her. And some of the moms were like, are you sure you want to forgive us for what we've done? And Ray's like, oh, God! Get over it! Look, you're sick of this, right? I'm glad that I'm alive, so whatever. It's fine. No grudges. Let's go. I'm bored of this stupid series. I'm going to my better series that's going to happen after it's over with. It's called Ray and the Ray of Ray. It's going to be so cool.
Oh, I love Ray.
So everyone's like, come on, Mom. You can join us, Mom. And Isabella's, the act breaks. And she's like, she thought that she would be rejected, and even Ray is like, getting over, and she's like, I'm sorry for everything and thank you. And she cries as she's surrounded by some of the younger children. And Emma's like, all right, once we're done, we'll come back here. And so let Gracefield continue to operate. We've got other stuff to do. No, we don't. Actually, they get word that everything is basically over. Because there's a message going out from the Imperial capital to everyone. All the Imperial soldiers that are stationed outside are leaving. So, yay, we won. Basically, it seems like. Anyway, so Promised Neverland is heading towards its finale. So 3 chapters from now, rocks are going to fall and kill Elizabeth. So yeah.
All right, let's talk about Black Clover then. Black Clover, page 246. The tree. Oh fuck! I forgot I was supposed to look up how to say this. The tree of Qliphoth, which is almost certainly not how that's said. So Asta has fallen as ungainly and ungracefully as possible into the ground. And he's currently unconscious, where the demon is saying, like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to slaughter you, we won't get away with this. Basically feeding into all of his anger. And Asta's like, oh, what's going on? Oh, right, Gouge. Oh, he's okay. And that Spade guy. Oh, cool, Yami beat him. And I guess he just falls unconscious again. But hey, Yami beat him because he condensed his magic zone. And he's so strong. But wait! He said, ha-ha! Who would have thought I'd have to use this magic? And there's a spell, and everyone's like, is that spell? What is that spell? They don't really know. And he talks about like, I mean,
he heals from it, but it looks almost like his flesh morphs as opposed to just the damage being undone. How can he have 2 types of magic? We've never seen a mage with 2 types of magic before.
Nick, as you know, the one rule that cannot be broken in Black Clover, if you're a mage, you can only have 1 type of magic. That's how it works. Right. So this must be some kind of... He must be using gravity to close his... You know what? That might be the actual answer, though. So he's like, "Ooh, yes, you're real good, Yami. I was so bored. I've been bored of everything. Crushing people, being evil, killing a dog, I guess. All of it bored me. But this is where it starts. You're going to open up a world that's far more magnificent." And Yami's like, hey, so to kind of follow up, I guess, on last chapter, what was all that about me being a key to the underworld? And they're like, yeah, there's a magical channel called Tree of Qliphoth. Qliphoth. And they're like, there's 2 things that are required to make it. A big tree and darkness, which... It's what you and William Vangeance have.
I'm taking you with me to California.
We're gonna find a real big tree. So yeah, that he's like, I need arcane stages with dark magic and world tree magic, and we kind of already have the world tree magic guy.
So hey, that's why the Golden Dawn was targeted before. Makes sense. Cool.
And he's like, so hypothetically, if this world gets linked to the underworld, what happens? And they're like, oh, well, devils were pouring. Like, just they'll be unstopped, like unchecked. They'll just pour all over everything. Ha 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 ha. He does a whole like evil laugh, and he's like, oh, I'm really looking forward to this. And Yami's like, I guess I'm gonna have to kill you now. Cut over to somewhere in the Spade Kingdom, where they're like, 2 people are like.
Hey, Clover spy around here? Yeah, that's a new plot thread. Cool.
Yeah. They're just like, hey, there's a spy. And someone's looking at... Is it the Tree of Qliphoth? No. They're looking at the Sephiroth. So...
it is a visual very similar to the diagram that comes up, but it is a different one. I think this is the same one that came up with the elves.
Yeah, this is Sephiroth.
Yeah.
So... Someone's looking at the Sephiroth. Someone's like, what are you doing in Lord Dante's room? Oh, you must be the spy. I'm going to fight you. Oh, they're gone. Oh, they killed me. Goodbye. And then they look like they have a Black Bull's book.
Yes.
So
I looked up some stuff to see if anyone had, any clues as to who this person actually is based off of, build and all that stuff. I do wonder if it's supposed to be Zora, because being a spy seems like he would actually probably be pretty well suited to doing that out of all the members that we know of in the Black Bulls, and we haven't seen him since the flashback, I don't think. Not the flashback, the time skip. That said, he doesn't move like Zora.
Yeah, this character literally moves through darkness.
Mm-hmm. You could say it's a type of trap, maybe, but it doesn't seem to really match with the way that Zora tends to do things.
Well, so, people are saying there's a missing vice captain. I thought
Exactly.
I
People
thought
saying
I
the vice
thought Vanessa
captain.
was the vice captain. God damn, I don't pay attention in this series.
So it could be a number of things. It could be a character that we've never seen before who is the missing vice captain of the Black Bulls. Hey, it could be a character we've met before, but wasn't part of the Black Bulls before, and they joined the Black Bulls during the time skip. Who knows?
I
So
as I read this chapter, at first I thought it was Zoro, but then when I reread it, I was like, oh god, I hope it's not Patry. Because I was like, there is the Sephiroth designs there, and that was their whole thing, so it wouldn't be.
That's what happened to them after they were left to. By the way, you're not dying now.
Yeah, so I mean, those characters are still out there. Hey, this is an awful chapter. It's an okay one. This is sort of like a new thing to throw in there, but maybe it is. This could be more of a. As I said, I've forgotten that there was the vice captain we haven't seen before. So if that is something, then that actually is some good long-term payoff.
I don't know if we were ever actually told the Black Bulls had a vice captain. I know that other squads have vice captains, and we've never had one named for the Black Bulls. But
let's see.
We'll find out.
Black Bulls vice captain is nope. There is no vice captain, basically.
Exactly right. So, One Piece, Chapter 976. Begging your pardon. So, there's a cool two-page color spread of the Tontatas basically help them make shoes with the straw hats. It's very cute, very colorful. So, I do like the detail at the very beginning of this chapter. After Kinemon was like, "Yes, that was my plan," you know. Literally all the other members of the Akazaya 9 that are there with them are like, hey, you can tell us that you made a mistake. We won't be mad. I mean, it turned out fine, but stop lying. Fuck you. Anyways. So, he makes a big speech about, like, we were born separately. We'll die together. I accept this fate. Let's fight. Let's go and carry on Odin's will. Kawamatsu tries to swim to shore to get to Kanjuro and get Momonosuke away from him, but Kanjuro summons basically a swan? Big aquatic bird thing to carry him away, and he's going to take Momonosuke, and as he flies away, he's like, now I'm going to find Hiyori and kill her now that I know she's alive. So he starts flying away. The Straw Hats realize what's going on. Luffy's like, "Hey, what are you doing up there?" Sanji starts to take to the air with his skywalk. And Chopper explains to Luffy that Kanjuro is an enemy spy and he's capturing Momonosuke. And so Luffy's like, "Really? He was a spy this whole time? What a jerk!" Usopp tries to shoot him down. Sanji tries to go after him, but there's a cloud of ink that the bird is that Kanjuro's hair is spewing out, so covering his escape. And then he causes it to rain down ink arrows on the all the samurai and Luffy's crew and everything like that. And Kanjuro mocks Momonosuke, saying that he's going to kill them all, and that all the generals, all those brave and hardy samurai follow, is just a wheeling child without conviction, cowering because he's up high. What a joke! So Momonosuke says, "I know most of all that I'm not Kazuki Oden, and I know it better than anyone." So he shouts down to everyone, "Do not fret about me. That is what the enemy wants you to do. I will find a way to escape on my own, destroy Kaido and Orochi, and protect Wano." Even though, of course, internally he's thinking, there's no way he can do this on his own. But Luffy is impressed by Momo's show of bravery. He's like, he shouts up to him, "For such a cowardly, dumb little brat, you're just a kid with a top knot who's all talk." Nice compliment, bro. But he says, "Find a way to survive, and we'll go and rescue you because we're pals." And Momonosuke, all I can do really is nod as he is carried away. So they're like, all right, let's get to Onigashima. But in the commotion that's been going on, Kinemon and company have gotten aboard Law's ship, and Law's like, "Get away from me!" He really doesn't like them being there. He's just like, "No, you're not in one of the samurai ships. Get off here!" Yeah. He's like, "We appreciate the help." "I'm not helping you. Go away." Social distancing. I'm a doctor.
All right.
Kid is just concerned that, I guess, the Straw Hats are going to get all the glory, so he orders his crew forward as well. So they're trying to close on the Animal Kingdom pirates who have long-range cannons and have managed to get away during all this commotion. They're firing on the crew. All the 3 different captains react differently. A lot of things like, it was suspicious that they ran away like that. Movie's like, we gotta get closer. And Kid is like, sink all the samurai ships you want. See if I care. What a great ally to have. So, and obviously there's trouble because if they can just maintain the distance, then all of the ships will be sunk before they can do anything. The Animal Kingdom pirates are celebrating and mocking them from a distance. All of a sudden, someone shouts, "Spear wave!" And from one of the waves, a lance of energy shoots out, piercing one of the Animal Kingdom pirates' ships. It blows up some of the long-distance cannons. And like, what's going on? And Robin says, maybe they're being killed by the vengeful spirit of a baby who died at sea.
I forget that's part of Robin's gimmick. It really, every time it happens, it takes me for surprise.
But of course, who should emerge but a very polite fishman who says, well met, good people, begging your pardon. I hail from the fishman district of Ryugu Kingdom on the bottom of the sea. I am but a humble newcomer to the group, having imposed upon folks left and right despite receiving a ritual cup from the boss of the Straw Hat crew. They call me Jimbei, first son of the sea. For the sake of a long and fruitful relationship, I would be pleased to make your acquaintance. Sorry for forcing you to wait like that, but I've come back alive just as I promised, Luffy. I'm glad I made it in time for the battle. And we get a big old caption box that says, Straw Hat Crew Helmsman Jimbei, first son of the sea. And of course, all the Straw Hats are ecstatic to see him. While Kid and Ma are kind of pissed off about this.
I do love that, where they're like, what the fuck, are you kidding me? He's a Straw Hat now?
No, bullshit, bullshit.
Damn it.
So Jinbei joins the Straw Hats officially. He made it back just in time for the big fight in Wano. And he's not the character of the week this week somehow.
No, I think this is the one everyone probably, like, when they were like, I don't know, is it still going to be Osamu? They probably talking about this because One Piece fans have been really excited. And I was. I think this would have been more exciting if he hadn't shown up in Fishman Island, because it doesn't, or not Fishman, Whole Cake Island, because it doesn't really feel like it's been that long since we've seen Jimbei. Like, in terms of the story, like in time, it's only been like a year and a half, I think, since we've seen Jimbei, which is astonishingly long in comparison, but considering One Piece, like, it's not that long. So I'm actually super excited to see him. I'm maybe not as hyped as a lot of other people just because it happened to be in the exact same week that a much longer payoff happened that I was like, oh my God. But it's still pretty cool.
I mean, geez, this is like the first person to join the Straw Hats officially in
like 7 years.
It might be longer than that.
It is longer. I had a friend recently who just finished the Thriller Bark arc. And I was like, yeah, it was a pretty good arc, you know, that. And I looked it up. I was like, oh my God, decade ago.
Like 10 years ago.
I was like, Jesus.
No one else has joined officially since Brook. So, yeah. Yeah. Cool chapter. A lot of good chapters this week. But only one can be the best chapter.
Only one!
Only one. Chris, you've already said that it is Osamu and World Trigger for you.
Nope, and a big twist of fate. It's going to be the second part of Francois' drink chapter, and it's going to be Dante, because he used gravity to seal his wounds.
He used gravity to seal his wounds. I'm going to partially echo you and say World Trigger definitely for chapter of the week. Such a huge payoff. But my character of the week is actually going to be Dabi.
Okay.
I thought that
the humble house elf.
Yes, exactly, Chris. He got his sock and he was a free elf until he got a fucking knife thrown into his stomach. But I really like the way that he comes off in this chapter of My Hero, how intimidating and crazy he is. He often seems like to be, this very like kind of dull, brooding sort of character, but I love seeing this psychopath energy that he gives off. And I like the fact that he's being made a big deal of, because it's nice to have more than one villain long term with a big payoff to come up. So And what was the audience's choice?
The audience picked World Trigger and Osamu. Let's come on now. You had to ask.
I had to be sure, for the sake of posterity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. Thank you for joining us for this long episode here on twitch.tv/RoloT, where we record the show live around 7:30 to 8 Eastern PM time. You can follow us on Twitter to keep updated on when exactly the show begins, however. The official podcast account is at WMR Podcast, and your two hosts are at RoloT and at Nick F. Time. Check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. You can also see some of them on YouTube, and you can see stuff on iTunes as well, if that is your preferred podcast listening method. Send us feedback and questions and stuff through our Discord server and through the email account, weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. Special thanks go out to our Patreon supporters. Your support allows us to create bonus content for you guys to enjoy. Special thanks to Steve Man, our title artist. You can check out his work anywhere where boobs are allowed to be shown on the internet, so not Tumblr. To Infamous Planet for making the frame for the stream version of the podcast, and to Milo Jack Stillitz and Winsdale Cheddar for the opening sequence of the show, and to NGX3i for maintaining the spreadsheet where we keep track of recommendations and all the favorites and MVPs and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's very helpful to source of information, especially to our listeners who want to know, have you covered this series? Check out the spreadsheet. We have covered a lot of manga. So, speaking of recommendations, do we have a recommendation for next time?
Yeah,
Chris?
So we've covered a lot of manga. We're going to be covering another one. We're going to be taking a look next time at Blue Flag, the long-running series from Kaito, who did Cross Manage. So this one runs, I forget what magazine it runs in, but essentially it can be available through the Manga Plus app. So we're going to take a look at that one. I'm very curious. It's a romance series, from my understanding. So
there was no romance in Cross Manage whatsoever, Chris.
Nope, not at all. So I'm very curious to check that one out. I've been very curious. It was just recently I was thinking, I was like, I wonder what the guy who did Cross Manage is doing. And then I heard somebody mention, like, yeah, that the Blue Flag's written by the guy from Cross Manage. Like, oh, right. There you go.
All right. Well, so that'll be our recommendation coming up at some point. It's possible that maybe we'll, cover it, solo in a couple weeks. I don't know. Next week, we'll have regular manga to cover. The week after that, we're not really sure what we're going to do yet because it was recently announced, I think it was announced just today, in fact, that due to an editor, I believe, getting diagnosed with coronavirus in the Shonen Jump office, that the April 20th issue's been delayed. So next week we'll have manga as normal, but the week after that there's not going to be Jump manga, it seems like. So we may have a gap for the fourth Wednesday of the month. So
yeah, we'll still find something to do in that time because no matter what, we'll fill it in with something.
Might be a Q&A episode. Who knows? We'll see.
Maybe we'll pull out Yu-Gi-Oh cards and throw them at each other and see what happens.
Yeah, we can try playing a Rush Duel, Chris.
Ooh, sounds exciting. It's like Uno, but with more rules. All right, that's good to it, Nick. Why don't we let's finish this off, Nick, with a Firefly Funhouse, where I take you through the course of your history, and then at the end,
I realize what a horrible person I really am, and because I've defeated myself, then you show up behind me in a demon clown mask, and because I've realized what a horrible person I am, then you can defeat me easily.
Yep, so. And then you vanish from existence.
And there's no explanation of what happened to
Gone to the ether. God, I can't wait for the time John Cena has to come back and he has to be like, hey guys, just managed to escape the evil clown dimension. Burr, burr, burr.
Firefly Hunt Funhouse match, infinitely better than Boneyard match. So.